Chapter 1363. At that instant, the cultivators were startled. Obviously, they did not expect someone to help Qin Nan at such a time. Who was it? Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, Meng Longxie, and the others were startled. They immediately turned around and were stunned when they saw three figures. The three figures were none other than Princess Miao Miao, Tang Qingshan, and Gong Yang, who were currently accepting the successions. You three are currently accepting the successions of one of the 12 Tianba hidden treasures. If you were to help Qin Nan now, it would be considered as you giving up on the successions. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain squinted and said, Princess, you don't have to. Qin Nan quickly collected his thoughts and was about to reject the offer. Each of the successions of the 12 Tianba hidden treasures was extraordinary. It would greatly benefit him if he were to accept them. He did not want Princess Miao Miao and her crew to lose such a great opportunity because of him. He would give up then. To his surprise, before Qin Nan could finish his sentence, Princess Miao Miao, Tang Qingshan, and Gong Yang's faces showed no sign of hesitation. Their figures immediately descended from the altar without any hesitation. So what if the successions of the 12 Tianba hidden treasures were precious? Even if the successions were outstanding, they would not allow Qin Nan to be bullied by a bunch of geniuses like Emperor Wu. Giving up now? The cultivators were dumbfounded upon seeing this. Not only did the simple action mean they were giving up on the precious 12 Tianba hidden treasures, they were also making Xiao Yunjue, Meng Longxie, Wan Fenghun, and the rest of the authorities their enemies. The three of them, the Dragon Emperor, the nine-tailed monarch beast, and Ao Tsangtian, fell silent. The decisive action of Princess Miao Miao and her crew brought a great impact to their hearts. Back when they were in the Dragon Emperor court, Qin Nan had also done the same for them. He had exposed everything about himself and defeated the geniuses of the three major powers. However, in the end, they did not help Qin Nan like Princess Miao Miao and the others. Yo, it seems like this kid is quite popular with the people around him. Small Worm twirled his dragon whiskers. His initial fury slowly subsided. It was a good feeling to have such a group of people willing to lend a helping hand in times of great danger. Princess, in my opinion, there's no need for you to intervene in this matter, right? Don't worry, Qin Nan is your friend. We will never hurt him. Xiao Yunjue's body stiffened, but he quickly recovered and forced a smile. He initially dared to harm Qin Nan as Princess Miao Miao was unable to help Qin Nan because she was busy with the succession. However, he did not expect Princess Miao Miao would be willing to sacrifice so much for Qin Nan. Don't try to fool the princess. Princess Miao Miao rolled her eyes. She turned to the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and said, Senior, please show us your independent space. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain gave her, Tang Qingshan, and Gong Yang a thoughtful look. He raised his hand and flicked his finger. Bang! Following a deafening blast, countless blue rays descended from the sky like ancient dragons. Within the blink of an eye, they formed a blue space with a circumference of 300 li. The blue space was incredibly obscure. Even peak martial monarchs could not peek into it with their divine sense. The battle to select the successor had officially begun. The time it took an incense stick to burn had passed. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain placed his hands behind himself and said calmly, Everyone, let's go. Qin Nan did not move. He stared at Princess Miao Miao, Tang Qingshan, and Gong Yang. His original intention was not to let the three of them interfere. However, for some reason, when he saw the three of them stand out without hesitation, a soft spot in his heart seemed to be deeply touched. What are you waiting for? Are you looking down on the princess? I'm telling you, even though my cultivation is only at the peak martial ancestor realm, my true strength is many times stronger than yours. Princess Miao Miao glanced at Qin Nan suspiciously. Qin Nan, don't worry, I won't be a burden to you. Gong Yang said with a calm smile. I'm not doubting your strength. It's only temporary. Let's go. Qin Nan paused in the middle of his sentence and shook his head. With a kick, he turned into a tremendous saber glow and disappeared into the blue space. He was already fearless when he was on his own. Now that he had 3 close friends helping him, was there any enemy he could not defeat in this world? Xiao Yunjue, what should we do? Meng Longxie stared at Qin Nan's back with a dark expression. He was not worried that he could not defeat Qin Nan and his crew, but it would infuriate the princess if he tried to harm Qin Nan and his crew. Wan Fenghun, Blood Runes, Qilin Flame, Vast Sky Thunder, Meng Longxie and I won't be able to harm the princess. Can you stop him and kill him while Meng Longxie and I are suppressing Qin Nan? If you succeed, you will be greatly rewarded. What do you think? Xiao Yunjue's eyes flickered as he transmitted his voice. Qin Nan was too dangerous for him. Even if it would infuriate the princess, he had to use this chance to eliminate him. Sure. Wan Fenghun, Blood Runes, Qilin Flame, Vast Sky Thunder nodded in agreement after a slight ponder. Once Qin Nan was dead, what was done could not be undone. Regardless of how furious Princess Miao Miao was, she would not go against them just because of a dead person. Then, under the gazes of the crowd, the 6 of them turned into 6 monstrous rays of light and entered the cyan space. The battle between the successors had officially begun. He did not expect this Qin Nan to be so popular. That was right, Princess Miao Miao, Tang Qingshan, and Gong Yang had sacrificed a lot for him. But what difference would it make? Qin Nan was still going to lose the battle. Apart from Princess Miao Miao, Gong Yang and Qin Nan only possessed the cultivation of the martial ancestor. They were no match against the 6 great geniuses, Emperor Wu. The authorities collected their thoughts and blurted out. None of them had high hopes in Qin Nan and his crew. Fellow cultivators, please be quiet. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain spoke all of a sudden. He continued, apart from the successors and the 12 Tianba hidden treasures, you are also here for the Skyless Dojo. The words caused the hearts of the cultivators at the scene to shudder, who immediately turned their heads around. Chapter 1364. Opening it now? At that instant, apart from the reputable martial monarchs of various factions, even the eyes of the martial ancestor realm cultivators glittered. They did not have a chance to claim the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, the 12 Tianba hidden treasures, etc., but they could all ascend to the Skyless Dojo. After all, it was not difficult to acquire 30 sky-severing dragon claws. Was it finally opening? The 4 geniuses of the Emperor Wu of the Mystic Cloud Villa, Qian Peng, Ji Qimei, and Li Qima, who had yet to be involved in any trouble, each had an ancient rune on their palm that emitted a faint glow. Everything had been prepared. Keep an eye on them. In the corner, the 2 mysterious martial ancestor realm cultivators slowly opened their eyes and transmitted their thoughts to Jiang Kongzhou. Origin Heaven has its rules. The heavens and earth are the void. The blue lotus does not exist in the world. The Skyless Dojo was opening. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain uttered a roar as if he was unaware of the situation. His hands continued to perform ancient hand seals, unleashing a terrifying force. Buzz. Suddenly, a strange buzz echoed across the heavens and earth, as if countless peerless artifacts were responding to it. Was that? The eyes of the authorities with cultivations of the 8th layer martial monarch realm and above widened as if they were aware of something extraordinary. Whoosh! He could only see a peerless saber glow descending from the sky, slashing the heavens and earth in half. From the giant gap, a square Tao platform over 3,000 zhang long emitted a green glow like a blossoming green lotus slowly flew out. In an instant, everything seemed to have disappeared. Only the green lotus Taoist platform floated silently in the air, as if it had existed since time immemorial. It was a hint of transcendence. In simpler words, it no longer belonged to the rules of the Kanglan continent. It had become an independent existence. Apart from the master of the Tao origin heavenly mountain, no one could suppress it without using force. Right at this moment, in the cyan space in the air, a voice rang out. Had the skyless dojo appeared? Qin Nan, Princess Miao Miao, Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, and the others immediately raised their heads as they sensed something. Such a strange feeling. Qin Nan lowered his head and glanced at his palm. Even though he had yet to see the true appearance of the skyless dojo, the mysterious intent emitting from it made him feel relaxed. It was as if he had seen a second flame in the endless darkness. Even though it was weak, it was not lonely. Attack! Xiao Yunjue and the others naturally didn't have such a feeling. They quickly regained their senses and shouted, Qin Nan, die! Meng Longxian and Wan Fenghun moved simultaneously, unleashing a boundless murderous aura and soul force into the sky as the two peerless monarch arts transformed into terrifying attacks that fired in Qin Nan's direction from both sides. They did not hold their strength. Qin Nan. Even an ordinary fourth-layer martial monarch would die, let alone a peak martial progenitor. You dare to attack me with just the two of you? Tang Qingshan's eyes instantly turned cold. His black hair drifted wildly in the wind. The black saber in his hand emitted a blinding red glow, which landed in front of Qin Nan like an ancient red mountain. Even though he did not acquire the 12 Tianba hidden treasures, he had comprehended a lot of them, allowing his cultivation to improve significantly. Qin Nan, no one is going to save you today. Xiao Yunjue, Shui Wenlin, Yen Leihao, and the others were waiting for their chance. They stepped out of a mystical formation, which avoided Tang Qingshan and trapped Qin Nan, Princess Miao Miao, and Gong Yang in place. The formation was known as the Formation of the Four Deities. Once it was executed, nothing inside the formation would be able to escape. It was incredibly imperious. Xiao Yunjue, allow me to witness how strong the young master of the god-beast Forbidden Ground is. Princess Miao Miao's expression remained the same as she performed a hand seal, causing the pure energy of the herbs to rise from her body, causing her aura to become incredibly magnificent. There was no way out. Gong Yang looked at vast sky thunder and let out a calm smile. A statue in his dantian began to break into pieces. His aura became extraordinary too. Bang bang bang! A series of deafening explosions took place, as the glow of different monarch arts flickered. Ha ha, Qin Nan, you only have 3 people on your side. You won't be able to turn the tables around. Blood Rune and Yen Leihao burst out laughing. Their figures emitted a boundless crimson glow and rolling flames, as if they were an ancient blood progenitor and an ancient fire progenitor, charging in Qin Nan's direction. How naive! Princess Miao Miao let out a hollow laugh. She reached out her hand and flicked her finger, summoning several ancient immortal flowers to blossom in the air. They immediately encapsulated Blood Rune and Yen Leihao's figures. Sword of the God Beast. Xiao Yunjue was not surprised at all. He performed a hand seal and gathered a strong beastly aura, which transformed into a giant dark golden sword with countless godly dragons coiling around it. It stabbed at Qin Nan. Gong Yang. Princess Miao Miao performed a hand seal. Battle! Gong Yang's eyes emitted a golden glow as he uttered a roar. Following this, the seal that Princess Miao Miao had hurled out seemed to be strengthened by a powerful force, causing its size to increase by a few hundred times, turning into a seal mountain that halted the terrifying sword in its tracks. I didn't expect you two to possess such strength, but I'm sorry, you've fallen into my trap. Vast Sky Thunder, who had yet to speak, suddenly grinned. Die. The crimson glow and flames on Blood Rune and Yen Leihao, who were trapped by the immortal flowers, suddenly grew stronger as they broke free from the seal. Not on my watch. Princess Miao Miao was about to execute another hand seal, but she was startled halfway through. She realized that she was unable to execute her attack. Princess, I'm sorry, but when I slash with the God Beast, you can only fight me within 100 breaths. You won't be able to attack anyone else. Xiao Yunjue said with a calm smile. Even though the ability was quite useless, it was still useful at times. Is that so? Senior brother Qingshan. Princess Miao Miao's expression remained the same as she yelled toward the front. Tang Qingshan? Xiao Yunjue, Vast Sky Thunder, Blood Rune, Qilin Yen, and the others were startled. Tang Qingshan was still willing to help Qin Nan when he was facing Meng Longxie and Wan Fenghuan's attacks? Killing Seal. Tang Qingshan's eyes emitted two crimson glows as he performed an ancient hand seal. He had always had a forbidden art that he was unable to use. However, this time, after comprehending some of it, he was finally able to use it. Even though it would inflict significant damage to him, he was willing to sacrifice it to kill these bastards. Senior, there's no need for you to do anything. Suddenly, a shout was heard. A terrifying aura burst out from Qin Nan, who had been treated as a thorn in the flesh by Xiao Yunjue and the others, and was protected by Tang Qingshan and the others. Chapter 1365. Not involved. Tang Qingshan halted in his tracks, as if he were suspecting that he had heard it wrong. All right, I'll take care of everything here myself, Qin Nan said calmly. His right arm exploded and transformed into the heaven-shattering saber. 6 geniuses had defeated Emperor Wu. His battle blood that had been dormant for a long time began to boil once again. Handle it himself? Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghuan, Meng Longxie, and the others were astounded hearing the words. Qin Nan was facing Blood Rune and Qilin Flame. Even an ordinary 6th-layer martial monarch would not stand a chance against the two of them. With Qin Nan's current cultivation, wouldn't he be digging his own grave if he were to fight the two of them? Go ahead if you want to handle it yourself, but don't call me senior next time. Tang Qingshan remained expressionless. He stopped performing hand seals. He was very familiar with his junior brother. Since he had said it himself, he must have some confidence in himself. Qin Nan. The eyes of Princess Miao Miao and Gong Yang flickered with curiosity. What kind of trump card did Qin Nan have that allowed him to face Blood Rune and Qilin Flame? Cough cough, I'll change my mind next time. Qin Nan let out a cough. When he first met Tang Qingshan, he had been calling him Qin Nan. Even though they had become brothers, he would still confuse them at times. Ha ha ha, Qin Nan, are you trying to take on the two of us on your own? Then let us see what kind of ability you have to make you be so arrogant. In the blink of an eye, Blood Rune and Qilin Flame collected their thoughts and burst out laughing. Their eyes were filled with disdain. Wrath of the Blood God! Sword of departing fire! Without any hesitation, they immediately executed 2 terrifying monarch arts, causing a boundless crimson glow to transform into a crimson figure that dashed forward furiously. In the distance, a terrifying fiery sword slashed forward rapidly, as if it was going to penetrate the darkness. Under these 2 great attacks, Qin Nan's figure immediately became incomparably small like an ant. With just a light slap, he would be crushed into pieces. You don't know the meaning of death. Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghuan, Meng Longxie, and Vast Sky Thunder wore cold grins upon seeing this. In their opinion, this Qin Nan must have become arrogant because he possessed some trump cards, and thought that he could fight Blood Rune and Blood Rune on his own. What he didn't know was that his actions were no different from striking a rock with an egg. He was digging his own grave. One strike of desolation. In the nick of time, Qin Nan's figure suddenly moved as he slashed at the 2 terrifying monarch arts with the heaven-shattering saber in his hand. Bang! At that instant, a terrifying saber intent sprang into the sky, as the desolation aura surged forward like a surging tide, devouring the 2 terrifying monarch arts. This is Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghuan, Meng Longxie, and Vast Sky Thunder were dumbfounded, as they could not believe their eyes. In addition to them, Tang Qingshan, Princess Miao Miao, Gong Yang, Blood Rune, and Qilin Flame shared the same reaction too. Both the aura and the force of the slash would require a cultivation of at least the 6th layer martial monarch realm to execute it. Qin Nan clearly did not use any secret technique. How was he able to execute such an attack? How did he do it? What is it? You can't believe it? I'm sorry, I haven't told you before. Even though I've yet to achieve the martial monarch realm, I've already refined the monarch horoscope. Qin Nan took one step at a time toward Blood Rune and Qilin Flame. As he said this, the two monarch intents in his monarch heart exploded. A brilliant monarch glow burst out from his body and sprang into the sky. 1st layer martial monarch realm. 2nd layer martial monarch realm. 3rd layer martial monarch realm. It finally stopped after reaching the 6th layer martial monarch realm. From afar, Qin Nan was no longer as insignificant as before in the blue space. Even among the geniuses, Emperor Wu, he was like a giant, whose monarch glow and monarch intent completely dominated everything. 6th layer martial monarch realm? Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, Meng Longxie, Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, and vast sky thunder felt like a thunderclap from the 9 heavens had exploded in their minds, causing their bodies to tremble subconsciously. They would never have thought that the ant in their eyes, the one with no future, Qin Nan had already achieved the martial monarch realm. On top of that, it was the 6th layer martial monarch realm. What exactly was going on? Meanwhile, at the deepest part of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. So this is the legendary Skyless Dojo? It's marvelous indeed. My spirit and will are slightly shaken just by taking a glimpse at it. I've made the right choice this time. My cultivation that has remained stagnant for the past 10 years will surely have a breakthrough this time. The martial monarchs and martial ancestor cultivators at the scene stared at the Skyless Dojo in the air in astonishment, before they collected their thoughts and exclaimed passionately. Whoosh! Following a piercing sound, Old Man Kanming, who had remained silent all this while, suddenly flew to the bottom of the Skyless Dojo. He glanced at the crowd and said in a loud voice, "Fellow cultivators, you can enter the Skyless Dojo after paying 30 sky-severing dragon claws." The martial monarchs and martial ancestor cultivators immediately turned into rays of light and entered the dojo after paying the dragon claws. Looking from afar, it was like a great flood with a great momentum. This Skyless Dojo is indeed extraordinary. Kid, let's go. Small Worm uttered a rare compliment before flying toward the dojo together with Sima Kong. When the dragon and the human set foot on the Skyless Dojo, it was already crowded with people. The martial monarchs of various factions and the cultivators of the martial ancestor were all sitting with their legs crossed calmly. Wisps of blue mystical glow appeared out of nowhere and encapsulated their figures, as if their auras had been erased, as if they no longer existed in this world. TSK, this blue mystical light must contain the hint of the true essence of cultivation that the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain has mastered. It seems like I should try using the forbidden art. Perhaps I can steal the hint of the true essence of cultivation. Small Worm pondered for a moment before glancing at the Dragon Emperor, Ao Tsangtian, and the others in the distance. With its current condition, it was unlikely that it would be able to forcibly execute the forbidden technique. Should it reveal its true form now and ask the battle dragons to help it? The aura of a teleportation formation? Small Worm's eyes glittered all of a sudden. He immediately turned around. They are making their move. In a corner, the eyes of two mysterious cultivators of the martial ancestor sprang open. In another corner, Zhang Xianyun, Zhuang Qianjue, Ji Qimei, and Li Qima suddenly opened their eyes. A formidable monarch glow was emitted from their bodies. What's going on? Someone is making a move here? Is it Zhang Xianyun and his crew? The martial monarchs and the cultivators of the martial ancestor were startled. Their faces were filled with astonishment when they saw Zhang Xianyun and his crew. What were they trying to do instead of wasting their time and comprehending the Tao origin heavenly mountain? Thousands of paths, each connected to the rift. Ancient gods, open the gate of spirit. Zhang Xianyun and his crew did not seem to be aware of the crowd's reaction. They uttered a roar and performed hand seals. Streams of monarch force burst out from their bodies and poured into their palms. Buzz. Chapter 1366. Is this an ancient teleportation formation? The eyes of the martial monarchs and martial progenitors flickered with confusion. What exactly were Zhang Xianyun and his crew planning to do by activating the ancient teleportation formation? Were they planning to teleport the experts of their tribes here? Kongzhou, do it. The two mysterious martial ancestor cultivators immediately transmitted their thoughts upon seeing this. The Ocean Emperor badge is here. All cultivators of the Ocean tribe, listen to my command and destroy these three ancient formations with all your might. Jiang Kongzhou, who had remained silent, suddenly uttered a roar at that instant. His aura rose rapidly as an ancient badge that seemed to be formed by a boundless ocean appeared in his hand, emitting a serene blue glow. The Ocean Emperor badge, one of the three greatest artifacts of the Ocean tribe. It was equivalent to the arrival of the tribe's leader. Ocean Emperor badge? Do it. The martial monarchs and martial ancestor cultivators of the Ocean tribe were startled, before they quickly collected their thoughts. A tremendous aura burst out from their bodies as they locked onto the three formations with their divine sense and executed a series of terrifying monarch arts. Kiki, Ice Cube Jiang, I knew you would make your move. Let me see if your cultivation has deteriorated. Li Qiemo smiled strangely. He opened his arms as if he had turned into an immemorial demon bird, dashing forward. Behind him, the experts of the Nether clan also burst out flows of nether energy, which were like ancient swords of the 9 serenities that had just been unsheathed. Stop them! In addition to the Undead tribe, the South Heaven Sacred Ground, the Jade Lake Sacred Ground, and the Martial Principal Sect each had a peak martial monarch realm ancient authority. Their figures emitted tremendous monarch glows as they charged at the cultivators of the Ocean tribe. Bang bang bang! At that instant, a series of shocking explosions took place on the Skyless Dojo. The martial monarchs of the Ocean tribe, the three great factions, and the martial monarchs of the Undead tribe began to fight one another. The attacks were extremely dangerous and intense. Even the Skyless Dojo was trembling slightly under such a grand battle. The battle has begun? The authorities of the other factions, the martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators were stunned. They never would have thought that a great war would break out between the 5 great forces without any warning. What on earth had happened here? Senior, will you intervene in the matter of the Skyless Tao platform? Amid the chaotic battle, Jiang Kongzhou raised his head and glanced at the master of the Tao origin heavenly mountain as if he had recalled something. Li Qiemo and the experts of the 3 great factions were startled by his question. Obviously, they were also very concerned about this issue. You can settle your own matters. I'm just a spectator, the master of the Tao origin heavenly mountain said calmly. His words clearly displayed his attitude. Thank you, Senior. Jiang Kongzhou nodded. Then, he suddenly turned his head and shouted, What are you waiting for? The eyes of Li Qimo and the others turned cold. The power of the 9 words, bless you. Ling Pu and Si Zhaoxue, who were receiving the successions on the 2 ancient altars, suddenly raised their hands and fired a formidable force into the distance. It turned into a dragon and entered Wu Hong's body on the Skyless Dojo. Activate. Wu Hong's aura skyrocketed instantly. Without any hesitation, he performed a hand seal and uttered a roar. His figure vanished into thin air as he broke through the blockade set up by the experts of the 3 great factions and the Undead tribe. He then appeared before the 3 ancient formations. It turned out that Jiang Kongzhou and Ling Pu of the Nine Words Ancient Sea had already teamed up secretly. Jiang Kongzhou had already predicted that the Ocean Tribe would be intercepted by the experts of the Undead Tribe and the three great factions. As such, he had asked Ling Pu and the others to use the power of the successor of the Nine Words Ancient Sea to take the three great factions and the Undead Tribe by surprise. TSK, Ice Cube Jiang, how cunning of you! However, you're still too naive. Do you really think that's all we have? Who would have thought that Li Chiemo would laugh instead of being shocked? His eyes were full of mockery. Master, I'm sorry, the offer is too great for me to reject. Below the skyless dojo, old man Kanming brought his fists together at the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. His hoarse voice echoed between the heavens and earth. You dare to disrespect us with the power of the Nine Words? Bang! In the next instant, his figure descended in front of Wu Hong like a heavenly god. That boundless emperor's aura seemed to have transformed into numerous ancient celestial mountains, crushing down on Wu Hong's body, immobilizing him. Li Qima and the others had already predicted that Jiang Kongzhou and his crew would have some tricks up their sleeve. As such, they had asked old man Kanming to conceal himself so that he could stop the enemy's attack at the most crucial moment. Old man Kanming? Wu Hong's expression stiffened. He had never expected that such a change would occur. Die. Old man Tsaming's gaze was icy. His skinny hand grabbed at Wu Hong's head like a demonic hand reaching out from the netherworld. Ancient monarch art, Kanming hand. Even an eighth-layer martial monarch would be shattered into pieces by the grab. What a surprise! A battle has already broken out before I've even come out. It seems like many people aren't willing to let me come here. In the nick of time, a calm voice with a terrifying aura appeared from the ancient formation. Three figures appeared from the center of the formation. They're out. At that instant, Jiang Kongzhou, the two mysterious martial ancestor cultivators, and the rest of the martial monarchs and martial ancestor cultivators raised their head. Their hearts were filled with curiosity. Who exactly were Zhang Xianyun and his crew trying to teleport here after putting in so much effort? This is, when the three figures fully appeared, it felt like time had frozen. Everyone's faces were filled with great astonishment, as they could not believe their eyes. Sheng Tianjing, Zhuang Zidao, Su Qingning. These three exceptional geniuses who had surpassed the rules of cultivation were all here? Meanwhile, in the blue space of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, the crowd inside the space was unaware of the shocking changes taking place on the skyless dojo. The reason being that they were still shocked by the cultivation that Qin Nan had unleashed. Qin Nan, you little brat, you didn't disappoint me and your master. After a while, Tang Qingshan finally collected his thoughts and wore a smile on his face. He had been blaming himself for Qin Nan's failure to achieve the martial monarch realm. How could he not be happy when he saw Qin Nan successfully achieving the martial monarch realm? Humph, senior brother Qingshan, why don't you take a look at who Qin Nan is? Princess Miao Miao's delicate face wore a smile, as her eyes curved into crescents. Her judgment was indeed the best in the world. The people she had her eyes on were always the most outstanding in the world. Impossible, that's impossible. If you've achieved the martial monarch realm, the monarch ranking would not hide it for you. It would tell the whole world. You've only used some kind of secret technique to improve your cultivation, making you as strong as a martial monarch. Let's kill him together. Chapter 1367. Ancestor of the Lightning Path, Chaotic Lightning Sword. Vast sky thunder flicked his finger, causing countless thunderbolts to intertwine and form a giant sword over 10 zhang long, emitting a destructive aura. Ancestor of the Blood Path, Wrath of the Blood God. Blood runes snapped as he spat out a few drops of ancient blood. A boundless bloody aura burst out from the blood, which formed a magnificent blood-red figure over a few hundred zhang tall. The blood-red figure reached out its hand and grabbed the chaotic lightning sword, as if it had treated Qin Nan as its nemesis. It took a step forward and arrived before Qin Nan, before slashing at him furiously. Destruction Domain! A brilliant black glow burst out from Qin Nan's figure and swept the surroundings, blocking the terrifying slash with brute force. Purgatory of Beasts! Heaven-shattering spear! Luosha soul-slaying art! Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, Meng Longxie, and Qilin Flame were all reputable genius martial monarchs, thus they immediately collected their thoughts within the blink of an eye. Their figures turned into rays of light and sprang forward while executing a series of terrifying monarch arts. Blood Rune was right, this Qin Nan had yet to achieve the martial monarch realm. He had only used a secret technique. If they were to attack Qin Nan at the same time, it would not take long for Qin Nan to wear out his secret technique. Are you ignoring my existence? Tang Qingshan's eyes flickered coldly. Senior brother, let me do it myself, Qin Nan yelled. Facing the attacks from the four genius Emperor Wu, it felt like a blue flame was ignited in his left eye, as a terrifying monarch intent was awakened in his body. Divine God of Battle, possess! A boundless battle intent rose into the air, forming an illusionary, imperious, magnificent ancient figure encapsulating Qin Nan's figure and merging with Qin Nan, resulting in a terrifying suppression. Fight! Qin Nan uttered a roar as he continued to slash forward. Bang bang bang! At that instant, a series of deafening noises took place, like an ancient bell penetrating the clouds and shattering the rocks. From afar, Qin Nan's figure was like an ancient golden-winged giant pung. Even though he was facing the six geniuses Emperor Wu, he was still able to break through their attacks. In just a few breaths' time, Qin Nan had gained the upper hand. What kind of secret technique is that? How is his cultivation so strong? When Xiao Yunjue saw the divine talisman that he had just sent out get chopped in half by a strand of saber light, he was both shocked and furious. After the brief exchange of blows, he realized that Qin Nan's cultivation was strong enough to face a seventh-layer martial monarch realm cultivator. Besides, Qin Nan had also mastered a terrifying eye technique and the heaven-shattering saber. Xiao Yunjue, he won't be able to hold on for much longer. He's already at his limit. If we keep attacking, his cultivation will return to normal. Blood Script's blood continued to burn as his face was filled with stubbornness. This ant had no chance of achieving the martial monarch realm. Five-clawed golden dragon battle armor. Qin Nan suddenly let out a roar as streams of golden dragon aura appeared from his body and circled his figure, forming an imperious battle armor with a formidable dragon might. He had obtained the battle armor at the Golden Dragon Valley in the abstruse god space, but he had yet to use it. However, it was the perfect time for him to use it against one of the six geniuses Emperor Wu. Five-clawed golden dragon battle armor? Are you Duan Qing? Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, and Vast Sky Thunder halted their attacks upon seeing this. Their minds began to buzz as if they had been struck by lightning. Previously, they had heard from elders Xuesha, Taoyan, and Lei Yuan that Duan Qing had obtained a five-clawed golden dragon battle armor after overcoming all the forbidding auras on the Golden Dragon Valley, allowing him to enter the deepest part of the Golden Dragon Valley. Now that Qin Nan was wearing the battle armor, it meant that the person who had killed them 5 to 6 times in the abstruse god space and had left a shadow in their hearts was Qin Nan. Besides, the fact that Qin Nan had appeared in the abstruse god space meant that Qin Nan had not used any secret technique, but had actually achieved the martial monarch realm. You know I'm Duan Qing? So you're 2D, Fei Hong and Xian? That's great, I'll settle all the grudges between us today. Qin Nan let out a hollow laugh. With a flicker, he dodged the monarch arts and appeared before the trio, firing a series of saber intents at them. Meanwhile, on the skyless dojo on the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Greetings, young master. Greetings, young master. The cultivators below the fifth layer martial monarch realm from the South Heaven Sacred Ground, the Jade Lake Sacred Ground, and the martial principal sect brought their fists together. Even the peak martial monarchs nodded with smiles. Among the three great factions, Xing Tianjing and the other two possessed a superior status. Why are they here? Strange, why would they use the ancient teleportation formation? The martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and rogue cultivators were even more confused after collecting their thoughts. If they were here for the Skyless Dojo, they could have shown up right from the start. There was no need for them to go through so much trouble. They used the ancient teleportation formation to come to the Skyless Dojo just so they wouldn't attract our attention, so they could catch us off guard. It seems like senior monarch ranking was right. The person who achieved the martial monarch realm on his own must be one of them. The eyes of the two mysterious martial ancestor cultivators flickered with icy murderous intent. And now their target had shown up. There's no need to be so courteous. Xing Tianjing placed his hands behind himself. He glanced at Wu Hong, before glancing at Jiang Kongzhou in the distance and said coldly, "Your ocean tribe is so stubborn. You still dare to oppose us under such circumstances. Xian Yun, lead the others and eliminate them." A single sentence was enough to decide the life and death of an ancient tribe. Crap. Kongzhou, what should we do? The martial monarchs of the ocean tribe were startled as they glanced at Jiang Kongzhou. Even though the ocean tribe was not weak, they were currently facing the three great factions and the undead tribe. If they were to fight to the death, they would not stand a chance. Beautiful, very beautiful. Before Jiang Kongzhou could speak, a burst of pleasant laughter could be heard. One of the two mysterious martial ancestor cultivators complimented, as expected of the current top genius, Emperor Wu, "Your reputation is well deserved." Who are you? Xing Tianjing, Zhuang Xidao, and Su Qingning's eyes flickered with astonishment as their gazes landed on the two martial progenitor realm cultivators. The former asked curiously with a hint of interest. "Me? A nobody, Wan Yonggu. As for the one beside me, I bet you don't know him. He's also a nobody, his name is Heng Wudwan." Wan Yonggu wore a calm smile. He reached out his hand together with Heng Wudwan and took off the black robes they were wearing. As soon as the robes were taken off and their faces were revealed to the crowd, an unexpected change took place. Bang! Chapter 1368. Under the overwhelming aura, it was as if a huge rock had been tossed into the calm surface of a lake, causing ripples to appear in the hearts of the cultivators, making it difficult for them to calm down. Some of the martial ancestor cultivators even felt a great pain in their chests, as an indescribable pressure rose in their hearts. The tremendous aura was not the aura of a monarch, nor was it the aura that Princess Miao Miao was born with. It was the aura of someone who had gone through countless hardships, battles, and slain countless martial monarchs. The martial monarchs at the scene more or less had the same aura too, but their aura was insignificant compared to the aura of the two cultivators. Even Xing Tianjing, Zhuang Xidao, and Su Qingning's aura was incomparable to theirs. Heng Wudwan? Are you saying you're the first Emperor Wu from 4,000 years ago, Heng Wudwan? An old man with silver hair blurted out as a thought crossed his mind. I remember now. According to the records, Wan Yonggu was the first Emperor Wu from 5,000 years ago. He once killed 8 martial monarchs on his own. No one could match his strength. An ancient martial monarch of the undead tribe blurted out. What? The first Emperor Wu from 4,000 and 5,000 years ago? The rest of the martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and rogue cultivators were dumbfounded upon hearing the words. Both Heng Wudwan and Wan Yonggu from 4,000 and 5,000 years ago were equivalent to Xing Tianjing now. No one in the entire Kanglan continent could match their strength. They were considered the top geniuses. Who would have thought someone would still remember us in this era? It was Heng Wuduan's first time speaking. That's not right. According to the records, both of you failed to achieve the martial god realm, and were killed by your enemies. Why are you still alive? The ancient martial monarch of the undead tribe was confused as he recalled something. That's right, we did die in the past, and have yet to be resurrected. However, we now have a new identity, the monarch ranking, one of the monarch envoys. Wan Yonggu slowly withdrew the smile on his face. Monarch envoys? The eyes of the cultivators widened. They had all participated in the monarch horoscope contest, thus they were familiar with the monarch envoys. However, they did not expect the ordinary-looking monarch envoys to possess such a formidable background. I've heard that many outstanding cultivators would be invited by the monarch ranking after their deaths, allowing them to live on in another way. I didn't expect it to be true. An ancient great emperor of the war race couldn't help but exclaim. The other great emperors took a deep breath of cold air. At their level, they knew a thing or two about many secrets. It seemed like the monarch ranking and the god ranking were a lot stronger than they had imagined. Not bad at all. Even the strongest cultivators from 4,000 and 5,000 years ago have appeared. The monarch ranking and god ranking are indeed impressive. Xing Tianjing clapped his hands gently. He seemed to be praising Luo Yunyang, but his eyes were indifferent. However, the times have changed. Be it 4,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, it's no longer worth mentioning. The current era was the era of Xing Tianjing. Regardless of who they were, he would suppress them all and crush them into pieces. The two cultivators before him were trying to achieve the martial monarch realm with the help of the Skyless Dojo and break the rules. That was impossible. You're right, times have changed. However, do you know the phrase, making a comeback? At that instant, Wan Yonggu and Heng Wuduan's eyes emitted a tremendous glow. The imperious aura emitted from their bodies skyrocketed, resulting in a magnificent aura. They were willing to be monarch envoys for a few thousand years, just for this day. They had returned to the world and stirred a great chaos, allowing the cultivators of the Kanglan continent to look up to them once again. Even those who had surpassed the rules of cultivation were no exception. Making a comeback? What a joke. Xing Tianjing remained still facing the imperious auras. He flung his sleeves and said, "Eliminate them." He was eager to see what other tricks they had up their sleeves. Got it. At that instant, on the Skyless Dojo, the martial monarchs of the three great factions and the undead tribe unleashed their monarch glows once again. Countless icy murderous intents locked onto the people of the Ocean Tribe, Wan Yonggu, and Heng Wuduan like terrifying beasts. The Skyless Dojo shuddered once again. Crap. The experts of the Ocean Tribe were startled. They no longer dared to hold back and unleash their ancient talismans and monarch weapons. If they did not give it their all, they would most likely have no chance of surviving. It's most likely a battle between the monarch ranking, god ranking, and the South Heaven Gate. However, judging from the current situation, the monarch ranking and god ranking are most likely going to lose. The martial monarchs of the other factions murmured in astonishment upon seeing this. It was the first time for many of them to see the three great authorities of the Kanglan continent, who had existed for a long time in the Kanglan continent, summoning such a huge lineup for the first time. Haha, Xing Tianjing, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you today. The ancient martial path, the eternal existence of the monarch god. I, in the name of the monarch god, summon the world. All monarch force, heed my command. At this critical juncture, Wan Yonggu laughed towards the sky. Wisps of grayish aura were emitted from his body, while a strange grayish token the size of a palm slowly appeared on his palm. Bang! As soon as the badge appeared, it was as if several thunderbolts from the 9 heavens had exploded deep inside the Tao Origin heavenly mountain, resulting in a tremendous impact. In addition to that, Even the skyless dojo that had surpassed the Kanglan continent began to emit a blinding blue glow, as if it was under a great pressure. The entire place was covered in a blue glow. Meanwhile, in the blue space of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, the spacious space suddenly shuddered. Qin Nan frowned. Just a moment ago, his monarch heart shuddered slightly. It seems like the situation outside is changing. The monarch ranking, god ranking, and South Heaven Gate have made their move. I have to hurry up. As the thought crossed Qin Nan's mind, his battle intent skyrocketed once again. Why is it still rising? The eyes of Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, and the others widened upon seeing this. Didn't he use a secret technique? It had been a few hundred breaths. Why was Qin Nan still growing stronger? Destruction Spear. Qin Nan's figure vanished with a whoosh and reappeared behind Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, and vast Sky Thunder. He raised his hand and summoned 3 pitch-black spears. Whoosh! The 3 pitch-black spears sprang forward at a shocking pace like 3 godly dragons emerging from the ocean. Following a piercing sound, they penetrated the talismans and monarch weapons on Blood Rune and his crew and nailed them to the rift in the distance. 3 cries of agony could be heard. Although the destruction spears were not strong enough to destroy their lives, the will of destruction penetrated their limbs and bones, destroying their flesh. Now it's your turn. Chapter 1369. Reincarnation of the Heaven Beast. Xiao Yunjue reacted swiftly. He opened his mouth and spat out wisps of ancient beast auras, which transformed into enormous, illusionary ancient heaven beasts. They formed an army and charged at Qin Nan. Buzz. Following the buzz of a saber, the countless heaven beasts were shattered into pieces. That god-damned heaven-shattering saber! Xiao Yunjue's expression turned extremely unsightly. The ancient heaven beasts he summoned were illusionary. Ordinary monarch arts could not inflict any damage on them. Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, stop holding back. Let's use our strongest moves to destroy him. Meng Longxie transformed into a sword and roamed in the air. Qin Nan's cultivation was too terrifying, like a bottomless abyss. If they continued to fight, they would surely be suppressed one by one. Got it! Xiao Yunjue and Wan Fenghun were indeed outstanding talents of their generation. With just a flash of thought, they had already made their decision. Force of the God Beast, strengthen me. Primogenitor of the Soul Path, seal. Right scripture of the Godly Exterminator. At that instant, Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, and Meng Longxie felt as if a seal in their bodies had been broken. Wisps of formidable beast auras, soul chi, and murderous intent burst out from their bodies, causing their auras to skyrocket, like magnificent giants. As the young masters of the God-Beast Forbidden Ground, the young masters of the Dead Spirit Tribe, and the successors of the Godly Exterminator Forbidden Ground, their bodies naturally possessed the power left behind by ancient authorities, allowing them to fight with their backs to the wall in times of need. Qin Nan, it doesn't matter if you've achieved the martial monarch realm or not, die. Xiao Yunjue and the others spread out and occupied 3 different directions. Their faces were filled with ferocious looks as they executed a series of overwhelming monarch arts. It felt like a surging monarch river pouring down, resulting in a shocking sight. From afar, the 3 of them looked like 3 furious gods, judging the sinful blasphemers. Haha, perfect timing, fist of the divine god of battle. Qin Nan's robe drifted to the wind as he burst out laughing. Following it, the illusionary figure of the divine god of battle encapsulating his figure shattered into thousands of blue rays in the shape of dragons that circled around his left arm. It felt like a mysterious force had been awakened from his left arm. Bang! The punch was enough to shatter the heavens and earth. Countless overwhelming monarch arts were instantly shattered by the terrifying force. Even the spacious blue space began to tremble. In the 9 heavens, when the divine god of battle was at his peak, A single punch was enough to shatter the Kanglan continent. Even though Qin Nan had only unleashed a wisp of his will, the power it contained was still utterly terrifying and immeasurable. Xiao Yunjue and the others had no chance against it. Spear, spear. Qin Nan did not stop there. He hurled the 3 pitch-black spears forward and penetrated the chests of Xiao Yunjue and the others, nailing them into the rift. 3 cries of agony took place. The 6 great geniuses, Emperor Wu, were suppressed by Qin Nan alone. Qin Nan, how dare you humiliate me? Do you believe that I'll lead the experts of the God-Beast Forbidden Ground to torture you? Xiao Yunjue cried out in agony. His eyes were filled with great fury. Even though he had been defeated countless times since he was born, it was his first time being nailed into the rift. However, before he could finish his words, a voice rang out. Shut up! Qin Nan snapped coldly. The heaven-shattering saber emitted an icy glow once again. Not only was he going to suppress Xiao Yunjue and the others, he was going to kill them all too. Qin Nan, their bodies contain the will of the martial god realm experts of their respective tribes. If they are in danger, the will of the martial god realm will explode. It's not good for you now. If you want to kill them, why don't you wait until you've achieved the martial monarch realm? The voice of the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain suddenly appeared in Qin Nan's mind. The will of the martial god realm, huh? Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he glanced at the 6 cultivators and said, I'll show you a grand occasion before taking your heads. Saying this, Qin Nan withdrew the heaven-shattering saber. His terrifying aura returned to normal, as he transformed into an insignificant martial ancestor. Xiao Nanzi, tell me the truth, how did you do it? Princess Miao Miao immediately flew over and blinked her eyes. Her attractive face was filled with curiosity. In addition to her, Gong Yang and Tang Qingshan reacted the same way too, especially the latter. He had witnessed Qin Nan failing to inherit the 9 monarch horoscopes during the monarch horoscope contest. It's a long story, I'll explain it to you later. However, for now, Princess, Senior Brother, Brother Yang, I've got something important to do. I hope you can lend me a hand if you have the chance. Qin Nan wore a stern expression. Oh! Princess Miao Miao and the others were astounded. It was their first time seeing Qin Nan asking for their help in such a serious manner. I'm going to achieve the martial monarch realm. Qin Nan paused for a moment before adding, I'm going to achieve the martial monarch realm on my own. The calm tone and the normal words, yet at that instant, be it Princess Miao Miao and the others, or Xiao Yunjue and the others who were nailed into the rift, they felt like a thunderbolt from the 9 heavens had struck their mind. As the battle of the successors in the blue space came to an end. On the skyless dojo of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. This is... At that instant, even the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and Little Worm were startled. What's this? The martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators were clueless about what had just happened. Their faces were filled with astonishment. He had only taken out a token. How could it cause such a huge phenomenon? Wherever the monarch glow shines, the monarch force will be unleashed to strengthen the ocean tribe. Wan Yonggu's figure turned into a ray of light and soared into the rift. The badge in his hand emitted a blinding gray glow, which landed on the martial monarchs of various factions, Xing Tianjing and the others. Whoosh! A shocking sight took place. After being shone upon by the gray glow, the streams of pure monarch force inside the martial monarchs' bodies flew out on their own and entered the martial monarchs of the ocean tribe, Jiang Kongzhou and Wu Hong's bodies. Their auras skyrocketed instantly, with magnificent monarch auras. As for the martial monarchs who had lost their monarch force, their auras dropped rapidly. What's going on? I can't control the monarch force in my body. Wan Yonggu, what are you doing? What exactly is that badge? The martial monarchs were astounded and enraged at the same time. It was their first time witnessing such a strange sight. The badge in your hand, could it be the legendary artifact of the monarch ranking, the Martial Path God Monarch Badge? Chapter 1370. Martial Path God Monarch Badge? The ancient existences of the other factions were startled. According to the ancient legends, the monarch ranking had a Martial Path God Monarch Badge. Once it was activated, it would deprive every martial monarch within a certain range of 30% of their monarch force. The God ranking also had a similar badge, which was specifically used to deprive martial gods of their god horoscope. From the looks of it, this legend was actually true? Impressive, this is indeed the Martial Path God Monarch Badge. It can deprive you of your martial monarch force and use it on other martial monarchs. Wan Yonggu was bathed in a monarch glow as his aura skyrocketed. He glanced down at Xing Tianjing and said, "Now, do we have the right to make a comeback? Interesting, I didn't expect the monarch ranking to take out a badge like that. If that's the case, I'll play with you too." Xing Tianjing's lips curled upward. With a kick, he instantly arrived before Wan Yonggu. Various peerless monarch arts intertwined into an ancient monarch pattern looming over Wan Yonggu. "Cultivator Wuduan, if you don't mind, can I have a duel with you?" Zhuang Tsidao made an inviting gesture in an extremely elegant manner. Hey, what about me?" Su Qingning rolled her eyes. "You two, come at me together." Heng Wuduan's body flashed, as though he had transformed into an immemorial celestial dragon, descending before the two of them. Countless amounts of qi condensed into a series of unparalleled killing moves, gushing down violently. It was extremely shocking. "People of the Ocean Tribe, listen up, attack with all you've got, don't hold back." Jiang Kongzhou, who was not far away, uttered a roar and gave out the order. Acknowledged. The martial monarchs of the Ocean Tribe raised their morale as they executed their monarch art. They were strengthened by 30% of the martial monarchs' monarch force, while the martial monarchs of the three great factions and the undead tribe were weakened by another 30%. Even though the three great factions and the undead tribe had more martial monarchs, they still had a great chance of winning the battle. Ice Cube Jiang, how impressive of you! Li Qima's face became extremely gloomy. With a roar, many underworld techniques were unleashed like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers. "Qima, we're here to lend you a hand." Zhang Xianyun, Zhuang Qianjue, and Ji Qimei, the three reputable geniuses Emperor Wu, uttered a roar too. Their figures slashed forward as if they had turned into three swords. "Cultivator Kongzhou, let's work together." Wu Hong took the opportunity when Old Man Kanming was being held back by a martial monarch of the Ocean Tribe. With a flicker, he arrived beside Jiang Kongzhou and flicked his finger. Bang bang! At that instant, a series of thunderous explosions took place, shaking the surroundings. A monarchs arts monarchs martial monarchs, the martial monarchs great monarchs, as monarch. The battle between Wan Yonggu and Xing Tianjing, Heng Wuduan, Zhuang Tsidao, and Su Qingning, in particular, attracted the attention of the martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and rogue cultivators. Although the battle between the five geniuses was not as terrifying as the battles between the peak martial monarchs, the monarch arts they had mastered, the schemes they had come up with, and the reactions they had made were spectacular. The crowd held their breaths, not willing to miss any of it. It was rare to see a battle between geniuses of this level. "Patriarch, this is the situation we're in, what should we do?" However, during the battle, an ancient existence from the god-beast Forbidden Ground, the Dead Spirit Tribe, the Battle Tribe, and the rest of the factions secretly transmitted their thoughts. "No matter who loses, don't do anything." Not long after, several imperious voices echoed in the minds of the ancient existences. Although the words spoken by each dignified voice were different, their meaning was strangely consistent. They must not interfere. Understood. The ancient existences nodded without being surprised. Everyone knew that the battle was only an ordinary one between the monarch ranking, the god ranking, and the South Heaven Gate. Regardless of who won the battle, if they were to interfere, it would mean that they had sided with the monarch ranking, thus the consequences would be unimaginable. Master K, Wan Yonggu and Heng Wudwan's moves are a little strange. Why are they so powerful when they were only using normal attacks? They are the top genius Emperor Wu from around 5,000 years ago. After becoming the monarch envoys, they must have been studying martial arts. Even these ordinary monarch arts have surpassed their limit. Master K, their artifacts are quite impressive too. They seem to have been refined for a few thousand years too. Should we find a chance to get them? In a corner on the Skyless Dojo, Sima Kong and Small Worm were watching the battle with great interest and chatting with one another. The two of them knew very well that the bigger the war, the better it would be for them. Suddenly, Zhan Bawang, the other martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators raised their heads and glanced at the blue space on the other side of the sky. Bang! A huge gap was torn open in the blue space. A few figures slowly walked out from it, who turned out to be Qin Nan, Princess Miao Miao, Gong Yang, and Tang Qingshan. As soon as Qin Nan and his crew arrived, their attention was immediately attracted by the scene taking place on the Skyless Dojo. Qin Nan? Zhan Bawang, the other martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators were astounded. Did that mean Qin Nan and his crew had left the blue space in advance after losing the battle, while Xiao Yunjue and the others were still competing in the blue space? Qin Nan, since you entered the Skyless Dojo, Zhang Xianyun and his crew have used an ancient teleportation formation to teleport Xing Tianjing and his crew here. I believe it's the South Heaven Gate. The voice of the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain immediately echoed in Qin Nan's mind, explaining everything that had happened on the Skyless Dojo to Qin Nan. Who would have thought the monarch ranking, the god ranking, and the South Heaven Gate would go all out this time? Qin Nan took a deep breath. He did not expect Xing Tianjing and his crew, and Wan Yonggu and his crew would show up. This is the current situation. If you want to increase your chances of achieving the martial monarch realm, you can't wait until they are both injured. You should go to the Skyless Dojo now. That being said, you should know what you will encounter if you go to the Skyless Dojo now. Qin Nan, what are you going to do? The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain wore a thoughtful look. Senior, I've made up my mind since the beginning. Qin Nan's calm voice echoed in the mind of the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Following this, Qin Nan's figure descended from the sky. He tossed out 30 sky-severing dragon claws and walked toward the Skyless Dojo. He clearly knew that if he went to the Skyless Dojo before both sides were injured, it would mean that Princess Miao Miao, Tang Qingshan, and Gong Yang would not be able to help him. He would have to face the endless ocean of flames alone. But what difference would it make? He had failed to achieve the martial monarch realm twice. If he failed again, he would have no hope left. The only thing he could do now was to try his best and bet everything he had. As the saying went, the winner takes all. If he lost, he would die and cease to exist. Chapter 1371. This kid, is he finally going to start? Only the small worm was staring at Qin Nan with his dragon eyes. Even though it was a dragon god, its emotions were greatly fluctuating at this moment. Whether or not they could succeed this time was too crucial. If they couldn't, then everything would vanish into thin air. Qin Nan has indeed lost. The martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and rogue cultivators completely cleared their doubts after seeing Qin Nan's reaction. They withdrew their gazes and continued to observe the battles between the authorities and the geniuses. It was obvious that Qin Nan had not become the successor. Otherwise, he would not have gone to the Skyless Dojo. As such, they did not need to pay any attention to him. After all, he was only a mere martial ancestor. Meanwhile, in the midst of the battle, the authorities whose cultivations had surpassed the seventh-layer martial monarch realm flew away from the skyless dojo and entered the deepest part of the sky. The battle continued, and in just a few breaths' time, a huge portion of the sky collapsed and turned into chaos, resulting in a shocking sight. Those whose cultivation had not reached the seventh-layer martial monarch realm flew into the air and fought with one another. From afar, it was possible to see hundreds of monarch glows flickering at the same time every breath, like a starry night sky, shocking one's soul. As for the skyless dojo, only Wan Yonggu, Xing Tianjing, Jiang Kongzhou, Li Qima, Zhang Xianyun, and the others were left. Heaven-shattering flick. Wan Yonggu's aura skyrocketed. His figure moved rapidly amidst the monarch rain. Brilliant monarch glows gathered at the tip of his finger before he flicked it forward. Heaven's sealing chain. Xing Tianjing let out a roar. Several icy chains burst out from his sleeves and danced like ancient dragons, shattering the finger glow into pieces. Xing Tianjing, are you still not going to use your 3 martial spirits? If that's the case, I'll force you to use them. Wan Yonggu's entire body suddenly swelled up. In the blink of an eye, he had turned into an ancient giant that was hundreds of feet tall. His entire body was covered with countless runes as he punched out. Although the punch seemed ordinary, it was incredibly terrifying. It was one of the top skills of the monarch ranking, the heaven-destroying fist. When unleashed to its limit, it was able to destroy an entire space in an imperious manner. Do I need 3 martial souls to deal with you? This is the biggest joke in the world. Xing Tianjing's eyes flickered with disdain. Terrifying auras burst out from his surroundings like surging tides. From the beginning, he had only used 50% of his combat strength. What he was using now was his full strength. Boundless heaven and earth, divine transformation strike. Xing Tian's voice was as loud as a bell. He formed a seal and countless divine lights shone. At this moment, he seemed to have turned into a god. His figure became incomparably tall and majestic, and his divine aura surged. In that instant, everything before him began to pale in comparison. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Buzz! A loud saber chime echoed across the dojo. An ancient saber with a tremendous saber intent descended from the sky, shattering the gust of wind and the divine aura into pieces before inserting itself at the center of the dojo. Who's there? Xing Tianjing and Wan Yonggu were startled. They both took a few steps back. Someone is interfering? In addition to them, Heng Wuduan, Zhuang Xidao, Su Qingning, Jiang Kongzhou, and the rest of the martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators immediately scanned the dojo with their divine sense. You too, and everyone else here, you've made a mistake. A calm voice appeared. Qin Nan's figure flew toward the dojo and landed beside the heaven-shattering saber. His long robe drifted in the wind. Qin Nan. At that instant, Xing Tianjing, Wan Yonggu, and the rest of the martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators were astounded. No one had expected Qin Nan, who was only a martial ancestor, to interfere. Qin Nan, you've come at the right time. Lend me your heaven-shattering saber. I'll report it to Master Monarch ranking and ask him to reward you greatly. Wan Yonggu was overjoyed. With the heaven-shattering saber, he would surely be able to defeat Xing Tianjing. Qin Nan, I didn't kill you at the Dragon Emperor Court, but you still dare to show yourself today. Die. Xing Tianjing's eyes flickered coldly. He flung his sleeves, summoning godly glows that combined into a terrifying murderous intent. A mere martial ancestor dares to take part in a battle like this. He's asking for death. The rest of the martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators shook their heads as they collected their thoughts. However, an unexpected change took place once again. 6 auras flew out from the blue space on the other side of the sky at a shocking pace. Young master! What's going on? The rest of the martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators immediately raised their heads when they sensed the 6 auras. However, their expressions changed tremendously following a glimpse. Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, and the others' auras were extremely weak. There was a huge wound on their chest, from which blood continuously flowed out, dyeing their chests red. Weren't the 6 of them competing for the successor? Why were they all injured like this? Stop Qin Nan at once. Everyone in the God-Beast Forbidden Ground, stop him at once. He's already the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. We can't let him achieve the martial monarch realm on his own. Otherwise, Xiao Yunjue immediately yelled with all his might as soon as he showed up. Stop him? Successor? Achieve the martial monarch realm on his own. The martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators were dumbfounded. In the blink of an eye, when Xiao Yunjue and the others suddenly showed up, Shring Tianjing fully unleashed the terrifying attack that he had accumulated. It turned into a godly sword over 10 zhang long, slashing at Qin Nan's head. Even a 4th-layer martial monarch would fall to the attack, let alone Qin Nan. Bang! Following a loud crash, a brilliant saber glow sprang into the sky and shattered the godly sword into pieces. What just happened? The eyes of Shring Tianjing, Wan Yonggu, Heng Wuduan, Zhuang Xidao, Su Qingning, Jiang Kongzhou, and the others widened. How could Qin Nan shatter the sword so easily with his cultivation? I've already said that you're all mistaken about something. Qin Nan wore a calm expression. His hair drifted in the wind as his voice echoed between the heavens and earth. The person who is going to achieve the martial monarch realm on the Skyless Dojo is none other than me. It's you? Wan Yonggu and Shing Tianjing almost thought they had heard it wrong. That's right. Qin Nan raised his head and glanced at the martial monarchs, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators in the air. A terrifying aura burst out from his body. Fellow cultivators, I'll let you be the witnesses today. When will the monarch tribulation descend, if not now? Bang! Chapter 1372. Is it coming? The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain stared into the sky as if he had discovered something. He performed a hand seal without hesitation and spoke with a voice that sounded like the chime of a heavenly bell. Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, all rules, listen to my command, disperse. Whoosh! A shocking scene appeared. The entire space seemed to have suffered a supreme slash from a divine sword of the 9 heavens, causing the entire space to tremble. At the end of the space was a terrifying crack that was over 1,000 kilometers long, like a dragon from the primordial era. At that instant, the entire space seemed to have brightened slightly. If the cultivators at the scene raised their heads, they would be able to see the cloudless, blue sky outside through the crack. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had opened up the entire Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain to make way for Qin Nan's monarch tribulation, so it would not hinder the monarch tribulation. Skyless light, unleash the monarch force. Qin Nan uttered a roar as a strong absorption force burst out from his body, absorbing the blue glow emitted by the Skyless Dojo into his body and merging it with his monarch force. A few moments later, it turned into a tremendous blue glow that soared into the sky. At that instant, the cloudless, blue sky suddenly turned pitch black like ink. Countless golden lightning bolts with terrifying auras burst out from the black clouds, boiling, rolling, and accumulating. In the end, they transformed into golden lightning dragons. Roar! As soon as the golden dragons appeared, a pair of mountain-like eyes glanced down at Qin Nan's figure. They opened their bloody mouths and uttered a shocking roar. Bang! 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 At that instant, the entire Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, including the lands, mountains, rivers, etc., exploded under the roar. Strong gusts of wind, snow, torrential rain, and flames burst out from the rift, as if they were going to destroy the entire world. The gusts of wind, snow, torrential rain, flames, etc. were the result of the rules of cultivation that the monarch ranking, God ranking, and South Heaven Gate had modified. Emperor's Tribulation. This is the Emperor's Tribulation. 100 Emperor Tribulation Thunder Dragons. That's 100 Emperor Tribulation Thunder Dragons. Too terrifying. This is too terrifying. Could it be that Qin Nan is really self-achieving martial emperor? Self-achieving the martial monarch realm. There's actually someone who can achieve the martial monarch realm on their own? On the Skyless Dojo, the martial monarchs, the genius Emperor Wu, the martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators felt like their souls had received a great blow. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Normally, when a martial monarch completely achieved the martial monarch realm, the tribulation would only give birth to one tribulation lightning dragon. However, in the case of the genius Emperor Wu, there would be 3. However, there were at most 3 of them. So far, no one had attracted 4 of them. However, Qin Nan had attracted a few hundred tribulation lightning dragons, and each of them was 10 times bigger than the ones they had encountered before. Impossible, this is definitely impossible. In comparison, Xing Tianjing, Zhuang Cidao, Su Qingning, Wan Yonggu, Heng Wuduan, Jiang Kongzhou, the genius Emperor Wu, and the ancient existences of the 3 great factions were even more shocked. They had always thought the person who had self-achieved the martial monarch realm was someone that the monarch ranking, the God ranking, or the South Heaven Gate had trained. However, they never thought the person who had self-achieved the martial monarch realm was the one that had failed in the monarch horoscope contest of the Middle Continent, the one that no one would pay any attention to for the next 100 years, Qin Nan. In addition to that, when the boundless black clouds appeared and the tribulation lightning dragons lowered their heads and uttered roars, it felt like a terrifying lightning had struck down on a boundless ocean. The ancient authorities scattered across the Kanglan continent who had been in deep slumber were startled. Self-achieved the martial monarch realm. He's self-achieved the martial monarch realm. Who exactly is he, to be able to achieve the martial monarch realm on his own? He's surpassed it, not only the rules of cultivation, he's surpassed all the rules of cultivation. He's self-achieved the martial monarch realm, something that even the senior didn't manage to do. Ha ha ha, it's all retribution, it's all retribution. Monarch ranking, God ranking, South Heaven Gate, do you really think the cultivators of the Kanglan continent will always be toyed with by you? The voices echoed in the ancient demon abyss, the desolated forbidden ground, and other places. At this moment, in a mysterious place, a white-haired old man and a red-haired old man were sitting in front of a chessboard, staring at an ancient puzzle. Surrounding them were 5 monarch envoys and 3 god envoys. The South Heaven Gate should be showing its fangs now, but how is that possible? The spirit of the monarch ranking was holding a cup of tea as it spoke. However, its face was filled with great astonishment as it suddenly sensed something. Even the spirit of the god ranking completely lost its composure at that instant. What just happened? The person who had self-achieved the martial monarch realm was Qin Nan, who had failed to inherit the monarch horoscope? There was clearly no origin power of the martial monarch in this world. Where did he get it from? Could it be that the primary monarch force that Qin Nan inherited from the 9 monarch horoscopes was greatly reduced because Qin Nan had absorbed it? The spirit of the monarch ranking immediately recalled something. The cup of tea in its hand fell to the ground. It had been planning this for over 10,000 years, yet it had completely miscalculated this time. Meanwhile, in the southernmost area of the Kanglan continent, Buzz, without any sign, on the magnificent, ancient, imperious South Heaven Gate, which felt like it was suppressing the entire heavens and earth, a blinding purple glow suddenly flickered and lit up the surroundings, as if it was going to dye the whole place purple. What's going on? Such a strong purple glow. It's even stronger than when Empress Feyue showed up. Could it be that our South Heaven sacred ground has an enemy that's even scarier than Empress Feyue? The martial gods deep inside the South Heaven sacred ground were startled. Their eyes were filled with great astonishment. Who exactly is it? It's even more threatening than Empress Feyue. The spirit of the South Heaven gate snapped furiously. However, before it could finish, its anger was replaced by great astonishment as it sensed something. Chapter 1373. On top of that, 30 breaths after the monarch tribulation appeared. In the deepest parts of the Jade Lake sacred ground, the martial principal sect, the god-beast forbidden ground, the lost herb garden, the wretched disaster forest, the 9 words ancient sea, and the 8 ancient tribes, the ancient god corpse, the heavenly mystical blood, the nameless beast manual, and the rest of the artifacts that had been asleep for a long time suddenly awakened and emitted tremendous glows. These artifacts had once come into contact with the rules of cultivation. As such, when someone surpassed the rules of cultivation, they were able to sense what was happening at the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Not long after, these artifacts unleashed a powerful energy ripple and transmitted the scene of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain to their current masters through their respective abilities. The God-Beast Forbidden Ground inside a palace. Senior, we've investigated the unusual phenomenon in the Dragon Necropolis. An ancient purple-golden battle dragon that had achieved the martial monarch realm 8,000 years ago suddenly had its soul flame burning vigorously. A hunchbacked old man brought his fists together respectfully and said, "It still dares to be dishonest after being dead for 8,000 years. Spread the word, eliminate it, just." An imperious voice could be heard. However, before it could finish its sentence, the expression of the owner of the voice changed tremendously. He immediately crushed the armrest of the throne into pieces. Qin Nan was trying to achieve the martial monarch realm on his own. Didn't he already fail to achieve the martial monarch realm as an ant with no future? Why was he still able to achieve the martial monarch realm now? One of the 8 ancient tribes, the battle tribe deep inside a mysterious place. A bulky middle-aged man, whose body was covered in battle blood like a surging ocean, walked toward an ancient stone palace with an expressionless face. "Greetings, Patriarch." Beside the stone palace stood an ancient existence like a giant mountain emitting wisps of godly glow. He slowly opened his eyes and spoke with a thunderous voice. The giant was a martial god realm authority. "Senior Zhan Huang, how is the sacred corpse?" The middle-aged man did not act arrogantly. He bowed respectfully and asked. The sacred corpse was emitting a blue glow. As our ancestor had mentioned, the mission of our battle tribe had most likely come to an end. Zhan Huang said, his eyes abnormally bright. "Senior Zhan Huang, as you said before, the teachings of the ancestors must be obeyed. However, if that person is just an ordinary person, even if I go against the teachings of the clan and bear the infamy of the ages, I will never entrust Zhan Huang to the clan." The middle-aged man's expression was extremely resolute. He was telling Zhan Huang and the other ancient existences of the battle race his attitude. However, before he could finish, his pupils suddenly shrank. The Qin Nan, who had caused a great stir in the Middle Continent and had surpassed the rules of cultivation, was trying to achieve the martial monarch realm on his own in the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain? Most importantly, when Qin Nan was trying to achieve the martial monarch realm on his own, why did the sacred corpse that had been sleeping suddenly emit a glow? One of the 6 great forbidden lands, the lost herb garden. At the deepest part of the place were a few ancient and enormous immortal trees. They rose from the ground and reached into the clouds. From afar, it looked like a few enormous kingdoms of immortals had been standing there for a long time. Bang! The immortal trees shuddered vigorously all of a sudden. Their leaves emitted wisps of immortal glow, illuminating the place with a white glow. Qin Nan was trying to achieve the martial monarch realm on his own. How did he do it? A series of astounded voices could be heard. Who would have thought, seriously, when the princess told me that the man she had her eyes on was one of a kind in the world, that even Xing Tianjing was no match against him? I didn't even bother to look at it. I even mocked her, but it seems like I was really blind. One of the ancient existences among the immortal trees said in astonishment and a hint of self-mockery. Feiyue from 8,000 years ago, magical hair from 3,000 years ago, it did not misjudge Qin Nan, but it seemed like it had misjudged him. What should we do now? Another immortal tree took a deep breath and asked as a thought crossed its mind. Forget it, spread the word. If the South Heaven Gate of the monarch ranking, God ranking, and South Heaven Gate sends the order to kill, tell them that I'm in seclusion, and no one is to disturb me. The ancient immortal tree said after a slight hesitation. One of the 6 great forbidden grounds, the 9 words ancient sea. In the deepest part of the vast sea floating in the endless void, a deafening laughter suddenly rang out, breaking the ancient silence. Ha ha ha, I didn't misjudge him. Someone who could refine such a godly object is surely no ordinary cultivator. The owner of the voice was none other than the master of the 9 words ancient sea, the 9 words martial god. 9 words, what are you laughing at? At that instant, a shocking voice could be heard, followed by the appearance of an ancient pagoda. Beside the pagoda stood a man in a white robe. His magical hair drifted in the wind. Martial serendipity, why are you asking the obvious? The 9 words martial god snap. He switched the topic as a thought crossed his mind. Magical hair, are you here because… That's right, Qin Nan is about to achieve the martial monarch realm. It's time for you to fulfill your promise to. The magical hair sword god said calmly. Have you made up your mind? The 9 words martial god said after a slight silence. No one could stop him now that he had made up his mind. The young man of the martial serendipity pavilion said softly. Only the magical hair sword god was capable of doing such a shocking thing. Fine, since you've made up your mind, I'll fulfill my promise too. However, the outcome is not out yet. The 9 words martial god said. The magical hair sword god nodded. He flicked his finger and summoned a scene on the surface of the boundless ocean. The scene of the 100 golden dragons rolling about in the boundless black clouds was shown on the screen. His achievement of achieving the martial monarch realm has brought a greater reaction than we expected. As the saying goes, it's fine if you don't make a sound, but it's better when you make a move. This time, not only did Qin Nan astonish the people, he even astonished the heavens. The martial serendipity pavilion exclaimed. He had witnessed how Qin Nan had come so far after going through countless dangers. The magical hair sword god did not respond. He was extremely focused. Chapter 1374. Meanwhile, at the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. As the crowd was immersed in astonishment, the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain glanced into the sky and grinned. Are all of you looking at this place? I won't stop you this time, and allow you all to witness the birth of a legend, Saying this, he suddenly focused his gaze onto the 100 tribulation lightning dragons, as if he was aware of something. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. On each of the tribulation lightning dragons, there was a reverse scale with golden glows intertwined with lightning, which suddenly emitted a godly glow. The glow rapidly spread across their bodies like a blazing fire, causing their auras to skyrocket, as if they had transformed into godly dragons. Nice one. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain's eyes flickered. He initially thought 100 tribulation lightning dragons was the limit of the tribulation, but to his surprise, something like this had happened in the end. If Qin Nan was able to overcome the tribulation, not only would he be acknowledged by the heavens and earth, his monarch force would skyrocket too. Could it be that he had surpassed the rules of cultivation? Achieving the martial monarch realm was indeed extraordinary. My will merge with them. However, that was not the end of it. When Qin Nan saw the evolution of the tribulation lightning dragons, he uttered a roar. The will of the divine god of battle and the will of destruction in his monarch heart immediately turned into two tremendous rays that sprang into the dark clouds. Bang! At that instant, the 100 tribulation lightning dragons underwent another transformation. Their scales were instantly dyed pitch black, while their giant eyes were dyed blue. Their auras in particular skyrocketed, becoming incredibly magnificent like ancient immortal mountains, which could shatter the ground with a single slash. In addition to that, the most terrifying thing was that each of the tribulation lightning dragons now had a hint of a surpassing aura. Even though it was only a hint, it was extremely eye-catching among the heavens and earth. How is this possible? Could these tribulation dragons have surpassed the rules of cultivation and become their own tribulation dragons? Even the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain was left speechless. He had grasped a hint of the truth of cultivation and had refined the skyless dojo platform. He clearly knew what this surpassing aura meant. Self-calamity dragon? Even his lightning tribulation can surpass the lightning tribulation of heaven and earth? How terrifying, even a normal martial monarch realm cultivator wouldn't be able to achieve this. The martial monarchs, the genius Emperor Wu, the martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators who had just regained their consciousness were utterly shocked once again. Even their worldview was about to be overturned. Even the ancient existences who were watching everything in secret were shocked once again. One had to know that it was already extremely difficult for a skyless Tao platform to appear in this world. But now, hundreds of dragons had reached the level of the skyless dojo platform. Hundreds of self-calamity dragons? Then the countless setbacks and dangers I experienced in the past were not in vain. Now let me see just how powerful you are. Qin Nan's aura did not weaken under the terrifying tribulation. Instead, he took the initiative to attack the dragons like a peerless saber glow. Roar! The self-calamity dragons in the sky seemed to be infuriated by Qin Nan's actions. They uttered roars into the sky once again, shaking the heavens and earth and shattering the rules. Their dragon claws as huge as mountains slapped at Qin Nan's figure. From afar, Qin Nan's figure was extremely blurry. No one doubted that once the dragon claws landed, Qin Nan would surely be shattered into pieces. Crap! These self-calamity dragons are too terrifying. Qin Nan is no match against them. Small Worm's expression changed tremendously. Even though the stronger the tribulation, the greater the benefits it would bring, many talented cultivators were still killed by the tribulation. Even a peak martial monarch realm authority would not stand a chance against these self-calamity dragons, let alone Qin Nan. Bang bang bang! Following a series of deafening explosions, a shocking sight took place. The terrifying self-calamity dragons were extremely weak under Qin Nan's saber glow. Their strength was on par with Qin Nan's. Could it be that Qin Nan has completely surpassed the rules of cultivation? These self-calamity dragons only possess a hint of surpassing the rules of cultivation, thus they are being suppressed by Qin Nan? Small Worm's lips twisted as a thought crossed his mind. The kid's luck was indeed extraordinary after failing to achieve the martial monarch realm twice. He did not expect it to be a blessing in disguise, allowing him to nullify the danger with ease. Fellow cultivators, listen up. If anyone tries their best to shatter Qin Nan's tribulation, regardless of the outcome, the God-ranking and I will reward them handsomely. If anyone dares to help Qin Nan, they will become our enemy. We will hunt them down no matter where they are. Fellow cultivators, if anyone is willing to help and shatter Qin Nan's tribulation, the South Heaven sacred ground will reward you greatly. If anyone dares to. At that instant, a tremendous monarch glow and a brilliant blue glow were fired into the sky from Wan Yonggu and Xing Tianjing's figures, which transformed into two terrifying cries that exploded in the air. The voices belonged to the monarch ranking and the South Heaven Gate. When they realized that Qin Nan had a great chance of overcoming the tribulation, the three great authorities who had been competing against one another for tens of thousands of years could no longer sit still. They immediately made an exception and gave out the order to kill Qin Nan. People of the God-Beast Forbidden Ground, what are you waiting for? Qin Nan is such a disrespectful bastard. He dares to go against the heavens. Attack at once and shatter his tribulation, that's all. Following this, a strong beastly aura burst out from Xiao Yunjua's body, which transformed into an imperious voice. The voice belonged to the master of the God-Beast Forbidden Ground. People of the Dead Spirit tribe, listen up, don't hold anything back. Use your full strength to shatter the tribulation. If necessary, use the life and death soul orb in your bodies. People of the Undead tribe accept the order. Ocean tribe. Not long after, several ancient auras burst out from the bodies of the young masters of various factions, which transformed into shocking roars. The entire Skyless Dojo was filled with a strong murderous aura that had never been seen before in the past 8,000 years. Once he achieved the martial monarch realm, everyone would know about it. Once he achieved the martial monarch realm, everyone would be killed. Chapter 1375. The Monarch ranking, the God ranking, and the South Heaven Gate have teamed up. They have never teamed up against one another for tens of thousands of years, but they have made an exception this time. The terrifying existences across the Kanglan continent blurted out in astonishment upon seeing this. Meanwhile, the same thought crossed their minds. With such overwhelming murderous intent, could this guy achieve the martial monarch realm on his own? If you can achieve the martial monarch realm on your own, we will lend you a hand even if it's extremely dangerous. If not, many terrifying existences murmured in their hearts. Without absolute hope, they would not take the risk even if there was a slight chance of it happening. People of the South Heaven Sacred Ground, follow me and destroy the tribulation of that bastard. A few moments later, on the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, Martial Monarch Huangwu from the South Heaven Sacred Ground with a cultivation of the peak Martial Monarch realm was the first to react. He let out a roar as monarch glows burst out from his body, which transformed into wisps of murderous intent aiming at the tribulation dragons. Let's attack together. Martial Monarch Wuheng of the Martial Principal Sect, Martial Monarch Yunxing of the Jade Lake Sacred Ground, Martial Monarch Baishur of the God-Beast Forbidden Ground, Martial Monarch Wooding of the Dead Spirit Tribe, Martial Monarch Haitao of the Undead Tribe, Martial Monarch Lu Xing of the Ocean Tribe, and the rest of the peak Martial Monarchs reacted too. Their figures turned into blinding rays as they charged into the tribulation dragons. Kill. The rest of the martial monarchs collected their thoughts and executed their monarch art. At that instant, the entire sky was dyed in various colors by the monarch art. Even the spacious space of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain began to tremble once again, as a tremendous storm swept across it, shattering everything in its path. The sight of hundreds of martial monarchs attacking at the same time was simply too shocking. Roar! The hundreds of tribulation lightning dragons deep in the sky were infuriated. They no longer fought against Qin Nan. They moved around and fired wisps of light of destruction and battle intent at the martial monarchs. During the tribulation, anyone who interfered would be treated as an enemy. They would crush the enemy first, before crushing the one undergoing the tribulation. Bang! 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 Terrifying cries echoed across the heavens and earth. The rift began to collapse. Even the rules of the heavens and earth were shattered into pieces, turning the place into chaos. The scale of this battle was only slightly inferior to the battle between the four martial gods back then. These tribulation lightning dragons only have a hint of their own aura. How did they become so strong? Not long after, martial monarch Huangwu, martial monarch Wuheng, and the rest of the peak martial monarchs were startled. Initially, they thought that they would be able to destroy at least one beast in one move. Now, even if they used 5 moves, they probably wouldn't be able to do so. Was this the difference between a fake emperor and himself? Xing Tianjing, unleash the South Heaven Divine Seal in your body and join forces with Wan Yonggu to break through the seal of your monarch tribulation and kill Qin Nan. Wan Yonggu, use the Martial Path God Monarch badge and merge it with the South Heaven Divine Seal. You will be able to fool your own monarch tribulation. At that instant, the imperious voices of the South Heaven Gate and the monarch ranking exploded in Xing Tianjing and Wan Yonggu's minds. The monarch tribulation was too powerful. It would take them some time to reach the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. As such, they had decided to team up again and come up with this law-defying plan, allowing Xing Tianjing and the rest of the geniuses to kill Qin Nan, leaving no hope for Qin Nan. That being said, even though the plan was law-defying, if there were more than 7 seventh-layer martial monarchs, the tribulation lightning dragons would discover them. Otherwise, the South Heaven Gate and the monarch ranking would have sent out all the peak martial monarchs. South Heaven Divine Seal. Acknowledged Martial Path God Monarch Badge. Xing Tianjing and Wan Yonggu exchanged glances with one another and performed a hand seal without hesitation. At that instant, an illusionary, imperious door and countless monarch glows appeared and merged with one another, before turning into gray rules of cultivation of the heavens and earth. The rules of cultivation poured down onto Xing Tianjing, Wan Yonggu, Heng Wuduan, Zhuang Tsidao, Su Qingning, Jiang Kongzhou, and Li Qima's figures, causing their auras to become chaotic. Could this be the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and the authorities who were watching in the dark were startled? Let's team up and kill Qin Nan. Xing Tianjing let out a roar. Wisps of South Heaven God glow were unleashed from his body, encapsulating Wan Yonggu and the others as he flew toward Qin Nan. As the monarch ranking and the South Heaven Gate had mentioned, when the 7 of them arrived 100 zhang away from Qin Nan, the tribulation lightning dragons in the sky showed no reaction. Such a ruthless move, it's almost impossible for him to achieve the martial monarch realm. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and the terrifying existences took a deep breath. Outside, a few hundred martial monarchs were attacking the tribulation, while Xing Tianjing and the other 7 geniuses were teaming up against Qin Nan. Even if Qin Nan's strength was outstanding, allowing him to hold Xing Tianjing and the others off for some time, the tribulation would surely shatter. Besides, they were up against Xing Tianjing and the others. How could Qin Nan possibly handle them all on his own? Qin Nan, I have to admit, even I'm not as good as you in every aspect. Xing Tianjing placed his hands behind himself and stared at Qin Nan. However, you're too bold to dare to break the heavens. Either way, you're going to die in the end. Qin Nan, I initially wanted to have a one-on-one battle with you, but things didn't go as planned. Sorry for the offense. Friend Qin Nan, I hope you don't mind. At that instant, Su Qingning, Zhuang Tsidao, Wan Yonggu, and the others brought their fists together. They did not show any murderous intent, but they felt it was a pity. Each of them was considered a brilliant existence in the heavens and earth, thus their temperaments were extraordinary. Even though Qin Nan's current strength was extremely outstanding, if it was possible, they would prefer to have a duel with Qin Nan to determine the outcome of the duel. It was the pride in their bones. Ha! Qin Nan glanced at Xing Tianjing's group of 7 and the martial monarchs around him and burst out laughing. Fellow cultivators, there's no need for that. Even though I've become the enemy of the world and my chances of survival are slim, how am I going to achieve the martial monarch realm if I don't do this? If I want to defy the heavens, I shall accept the challenge. Come, let's fight. At that instant, a tremendous battle intent burst out. Chapter 1376. 8 Godly Dragons / Soaring Cloud 3 Emperor's Transformation. Wrath of the 9 Mystical Crimson Glow. Xing Tianjing, Zhuang Cidao, Su Qingning, and the others immediately displayed their outstanding strength. They first nullified the saber intense with a single move, before spreading out and executing a series of outstanding monarch arts from all directions. Within a single breath, Qin Nan was forced into a passive position. First form of the divine god of battle. Qin Nan's battle intent skyrocketed. His figure weaved through the monarch arts like a flying dragon, dodging them all. The heaven-shattering saber in his hand did not stop there either. It continued to execute streams of saber intents with ancient desolation. Such an impressive eye technique and movement. The eyes of Xing Tianjing and the others flickered with astonishment. Qin Nan's eye technique, movement, heaven-shattering saber, and his monarch force are extremely powerful. Don't use any talismans or artifacts when you attack. Wan Yonggu transmitted his voice to the crowd. His figure flickered as he executed a series of ancient monarch arts. Bang bang bang! A series of rapid explosions took place like a series of claps of thunder. Qin Nan, Xing Tianjing, and the others were like ferocious beasts in the air, clashing with one another within a breath's time. At that instant, the cultivators of the martial ancestor kingdom and the terrifying existences had their attention fixed on the battle. Even though the battles were incomparable to the battle between 100 martial monarchs and 100 dragons in the sky, the schemes involved and their understanding of martial arts were extraordinary. Even the top martial monarchs were incomparable to them. Besides, it was a battle between the top geniuses of the Kanglan continent. The outcome of the battle might even decide the outcome of the martial monarch realm, and the fate of countless people in the Kanglan continent. Such a pure battle intent, could this guy really be the person mentioned in the teachings of our ancestors? Among the crowd, Zhan Bawang stared at Qin Nan. Qin Nan. On the other side, Small Worm, Sima Kong, Tang Qingshan, and Gong Yang quietly clenched their fists. Little Nanzi. Princess Miao Miao glanced at Qin Nan's figure, then at the figures of the martial monarchs filling the sky. She slowly loosened her grip as her eyes flickered with determination. Dragon Emperor, Nine-Tailed, Ao Tsangtian, what are you 3 standing around for? Why aren't you making a move? Martial monarch Baishir, who was fighting against the tribulation lightning dragons, suddenly recalled something. He glanced at the Dragon Emperor and his crew and transmitted his voice. You must understand that Qin Nan is no longer a member of the Dragon Emperor court, but an enemy of the entire God-Beast Forbidden Ground. Attack? Enemy? The expressions of the Dragon Emperor, the Nine-Tailed Monarch Beast, and Ao Tsangtian changed rapidly. Even their figures began to tremble uncontrollably. They knew that as beasts they had to obey the orders of the god-beast. However, for some reason, the scene where Qin Nan fought for the sake of the Dragon Emperor court and left in disappointment kept replaying in their minds. Meanwhile, above the skyless dojo, sky-desolating saber. Suddenly, Qin Nan came to a stop as he slashed at the rift with the heaven-shattering saber. Whoosh! A shocking scene appeared. The heaven wasteland aura that was drifting in all directions suddenly surged, and with an astonishing speed, engulfed Xing Tianjing and the other 6 people. We've been tricked. The saber intents he unleashed weren't meant to attack us, but to create this saber intent space. Wan Yonggu immediately collected his thoughts and realized what was going on. Qin Nan, you've got a good idea. The saber intent space is strong enough to trap us for over 10 breaths. Su Qingning's eyes remained calm as she performed a hand seal and said, however, this will be the place where you die, illusionary world of the heavens. Whoosh! The surroundings changed instantly. The battle between 100 dragons and 100 monarchs, the skyless dojo, etc. all disappeared. They were replaced by a white mist, as if they had entered a foggy world. Such a powerful illusion. Qin Nan's eyes glittered. Qin Nan. A series of roars could be heard all of a sudden, as over 100 figures of Xing Tianjing, Zhuang Xidao, Su Qingning, and the others dashed out from the mist and executed outstanding monarch arts aiming at Qin Nan. The figures' movements, voices, auras, and monarch arts were exactly the same, making it difficult to distinguish the real ones. Even though Qin Nan's left eye of the divine god of battle was able to distinguish the real ones from the illusions, he could not keep up with the number of illusions that were coming at him. Seeing over 1,000 monarch arts approaching him, Qin Nan immediately gave up trying to distinguish the real ones. He uttered a roar and raised his left arm as he merged with the saber and slashed forward. Bang! Following a shocking explosion, Qin Nan's figure was sent flying like an arrow being fired. Even though only 7 of the monarch arts were real, with Qin Nan's cultivation, it was still enough to inflict serious damage to him. As expected of Miss Su, I'm afraid no one among the martial monarchs would be able to use such an illusion. The illusions disappeared as Heng Wuduan's figure appeared. He could not help but exclaim. However, before he could finish, his expression changed all of a sudden. Qin Nan, who was sent flying, emitted a tremendous destruction will, which transformed into a giant destruction spear that stabbed in his direction. There's something strange about his left arm. He managed to block all our attacks. Wan Yonggu snapped. Who would have thought your left arm is so extraordinary? Su Qingning's attractive face curled upward as she said, however, I already knew that the attack wouldn't be able to inflict serious damage on you, so I've prepared a backup plan. Following this, 2 tremendous auras burst out from Qin Nan's side, which turned out to be Li Qima and Jiang Kongzhou. Undead Progenitor's Heavenly Finger. Ocean God's illusionary shattering blow. Li Qima and Jiang Kongzhou immediately made their move. Their undead aura transformed into the finger of the undead progenitor, which slashed forward across the rift. Jiang Kongzhou's monarch art was even more extraordinary. The figure of the god of ocean appeared from the rift, and threw a punch forward as if it had traveled across time and space. It turned out that Su Qingning had never involved them in the illusion. She had asked them to lie in ambush and wait for the perfect opportunity to strike. Everything is interconnected and incomparably thorough. Unfortunately, you still miscalculated a step in the end. Qin Nan remained calm. He performed a hand seal and uttered with a thunderous voice, destruction and battle pattern. At that instant, a magnificent destruction will and a terrifying divine battle will surged and combined into a giant, pitch-black ancient pattern with blue light dots. It slowly unfolded, causing the rules of the heavens and earth to tremble. Chapter 1377. Such a terrifying will. Xing Tianjing, Zhuang Xidao, Su Qingning, and the others were astounded. Both the destruction will and the will of the divine god of battle were extremely terrifying, not to mention that Qin Nan had merged the 2 wills into one. Break! Qin Nan uttered a roar, unleashing the pattern of destruction and battle. Bang! With a great boom, the powerful finger of the underworld ancestor and the figure of the sea goddess seemed to have suffered a destructive blow. They were instantly obliterated into nothingness, unable to put up any resistance at all. How is this possible? Jiang Kongzhou and Li Qima's eyes widened. Regardless of how terrifying Qin Nan's monarch intent was, there was no way their 2 attacks would shatter it so easily, right? You 2 are not qualified to participate in this battle. Qin Nan flung his sleeve, causing a tremendous blue-black glow to burst out from the pattern of destruction and battle, which formed 2 illusionary mountains crushing down on the 2. Martial spirit unleashed. Monarch intent unleashed. Jiang Kongzhou and Li Qima felt a great chill running down their spines. They immediately unleashed their full strength without hesitation. Bang! The power of the 2 immediately dissipated, and they let out miserable cries. They were completely suppressed by the two illusory mountains, and had no power to fight back at all. Even though Jiang Kongzhou and Li Qima were the young masters of the Ocean Tribe and Undead Tribe respectively, and were ranked highly on the Genius Emperor Wu ranking, the difference between them and Qin Nan, or Xing Tianjing's trio, was just too great. Qin Nan, let me have a taste of your two monarch intents. Wan Yonggu and Heng Wuduan's figures soared into the sky like ancient golden-winged giant ping-pong. They executed 20 monarch arts within a single breath, like scattering flowers in the sky. Xing Tianjing and the others immediately moved and charged at Qin Nan together with the 20 monarch arts. Now that things have come to this, why don't you bring out all your skills? Qin Nan's hair danced in the wind, but he remained as still as a mountain. The picture of destruction and war seemed to have a mind of its own. It emitted an endless amount of greenish-black light, which transformed into destruction war dragons. Bang bang bang! At that instant the monarch arts were shattered. Not good! Xing Tianjing and the others were startled. They immediately executed their movement monarch arts to dodge the attack. They did not expect the power of the pattern of destruction and war to be more terrifying than they had imagined. Qin Nan, if that's the case, as you wish. Martial spirit, release. Xing Tianjing halted in his tracks as 24 crimson glows were emitted from his back. 3 enormous martial spirits floated in the air while emitting a tremendous pressure. Even the blue glow of the skyless dojo was greatly suppressed at that instant. Normally, once a cultivator reached the martial ancestor realm or the martial monarch realm, they would rarely rely on their martial spirits in a battle. However, for someone like Xing Tianjing who possessed 3 martial spirits, they would be able to unleash a terrifying strength. Qin Nan, your 2 monarch intents are most likely formed by your 7 martial trees, while my monarch intent is formed by a 19-zhang tall martial tree. Let's see which one of us is stronger. Su Qingning's eyes emitted a blinding glow as a terrifying monarch intent rose from her body, which was magnificent like a heavenly river. Since she had learned that Qin Nan had 7 martial trees, she had always wanted to compete with Qin Nan. Friend Qin Nan, even though I'm not as strong as them, my monarch heart isn't too weak either. Zhuang Tsidao wore a calm smile as 7 blinding monarch glows sprang into the sky from his back. Every martial monarch would only have 1 monarch heart, but he had 7 of them. Envoy's order deactivate. Wan Yonggu and Heng Wuduan let out a roar and performed a magical hand seal. A series of cracking sounds could be heard coming from their bodies as their monarch force rose rapidly. As monarch envoys, the monarch ranking had restricted their strength, thus they were not able to unleash their full strength. Qin Nan, take this. Xing Tianjing and his crew sprang into action like 5 peerless emperors with tremendous auras as they executed a series of remarkable monarch arts. The situation was different this time. Their monarch arts were able to shatter the destruction battle dragons into pieces with ease. On top of that, the 3 martial spirits, Su Qingning's monarch intent, and Zhuang Tsidao's monarch heart were able to greatly suppress the destruction battle pattern. Qin Nan was in a disadvantageous position. He even had a chance of dying. The 3 geniuses are getting serious. 3 martial spirits, monarch intent, and monarch heart, this is too terrifying. The martial ancestor realm rogue cultivators were astounded seeing this. It was their first time witnessing such a terrifying battle. These 5 cultivators are too strong. I'm afraid Qin Nan is going to lose this time. The ancient existences across the Kanglan continent let out sighs. It was almost impossible for Qin Nan to defeat these 5 cultivators. Besides, Qin Nan had to make it before the tribulation was shattered. Qin Nan. Even the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, the martial Serendipity Pavilion, the magical hair sword god, and the others were feeling nervous. Even though they knew Qin Nan had a slim chance of winning, they still had a glimpse of hope and anticipation in their hearts. Bang! 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 On the skyless dojo, the battle between Qin Nan and the others intensified. Qin Nan was multitasking. He slashed with the heaven-shattering saber and swung the pattern of destruction and battle. His aura was like that of a deity. Despite that, he was still being suppressed by Xing Tianjing and the others. He was constantly being knocked back while his body was covered in wounds. Qin Nan, there's no need to fight anymore. Just admit your defeat. If you're willing to submit to us, we can guarantee that your status in the South Heaven sacred ground won't be lower than mine. We'll give you all the cultivation resources you need, Xing Tianjing said as he stepped forward and knocked Qin Nan's pattern of destruction and battle back. Qin Nan, you have a grudge against the South Heaven Gate. Why do you have to go there? If you're willing to submit to us, we'll give you endless benefits. We'll even help you, Wan Yonggu and the other two said immediately. Even though Qin Nan would surely fail in his attempt to achieve the martial monarch realm, with their help, Qin Nan would surely be able to achieve the martial monarch realm again. By then, they would have a terrifying weapon in their hand. However, before Wan Yonggu could finish his sentence, Qin Nan, who had been backing away, suddenly unleashed a ferocious aura. The glow of the pattern of destruction and battle grew stronger too, transforming into giant mountains that shattered the attacks of Xing Tianjing and the others. Xing Tianjing and the others were startled. Submit? Submit? Qin Nan's eyes flickered with battle intent as his aura skyrocketed. Do you think I've already lost the battle in your eyes? Earlier, I was suppressed and forced to retreat repeatedly because I was using my mind to figure out the strength of the five of you. This battle has only just begun. Chapter 1378. These terrifying auras were all martial monarch auras, 43 of them in total. Some of them were peak martial monarchs, some were 8th layer martial monarchs, while the weakest was at the 5th layer martial monarch realm. Why are there so many martial monarchs all of a sudden? The master of the Tao origin Heavenly Mountain and the others, the terrifying existences hiding in the dark, the martial ancestor realm rogue cultivators subconsciously glanced at them. Even the few hundred martial monarchs fighting against the dragons in the sky could not help but inspect them with their divine sense. They could only see Princess Miao Miao, who no one had been paying any attention to since Qin Nan had achieved the martial monarch realm on his own. Several enormous illusionary figures with formidable mystical glows floated behind her. These figures were the wills that the authorities of the Lost Herb Garden had bestowed onto her with an ancient secret technique. Each of the wills possessed 60% of their actual strength. Princess, why are you doing this? Princess, why are you? Many authorities were confused. The wills that they had bestowed onto Princess Miao Miao were specifically meant for her to defend herself against strong enemies. However, there was no strong enemy around. Why would she summon them all? If anyone dares to harm these tribulation dragons, don't blame me for showing no mercy. Princess Miao Miao remained expressionless. With a flicker, she stood in front of the tribulation lightning dragons and snapped coldly at the authorities of various factions. She's helping Qin Nan? At that instant, the master of the Tao origin Heavenly Mountain and the others, and the terrifying existences, and the martial ancestor realm rogue cultivators were astounded. With Princess Miao Miao's identity, she was not only representing herself by helping Qin Nan. Princess Miao Miao, how bold of you to help Qin Nan. Is the Lost Herb Garden planning to go against us? Martial Monarch Huangwu, Martial Monarch Baisher, and the rest of the authorities immediately reacted with murderous intents. Enough with the nonsense, back off at once. We are already being extremely benevolent by not killing Qin Nan, yet you still want to help him. Miao Miao, you are the princess of the Lost Herb Garden. Your words and actions represent the entire Lost Herb Garden. Do you want to drag all of our clansmen down with you because of your stubbornness? The tycoons of the various Lost Herb Gardens were both shocked and furious. They never thought that Princess Meow Meow would go to such lengths for Qin Nan. Princess, it's my business to achieve the martial monarch realm. It has nothing to do with you. You should back off at once. Otherwise, I'll concede. Qin Nan shouted when he saw this. He could not allow Princess Meow Meow to implicate the entire Lost Herb Garden because of him. Although he had asked Princess Meow Meow, Tang Qingshan, and Gong Yang to help him in the beginning, he had also made it very clear that if the leaders of the other forces were to make a move, they would not be allowed to participate. Considering the scale of the situation, if they were to force their way in, it would be no different than committing suicide. If you want to concede, just do it. The princess always keeps her words. I will never go back on my words. Princess Meow Meow's eyes remained expressionless, while her attractive face was filled with a firm expression. You! The authorities of the Lost Herb Gardens were even more infuriated after hearing this. Elders, after my father and mother died, if it weren't for Qin Nan, I would have died long ago. He gave me a second chance at life. Now that he is in danger at the most crucial moment of his life, how could I just sit back and do nothing? I won't drag all of my clansmen down with me. Therefore, from today onward, I, Princess Meow Meow, am no longer the successor of the Lost Herb Garden. I'll take responsibility for everything here on my own. After saying this, Princess Meow Meow took out a jade-colored badge and crushed it into pieces without hesitation. The badge was the badge of the successor of the Lost Herb Garden. She had already made up her mind when she saw Qin Nan going against the world. Even though she was no longer the successor of the Lost Herb Garden, without the will of the authorities, she would only be digging her own grave if she were to get involved. However, she did not hesitate. She had to keep her conscience clear. She had to buy some time for Qin Nan, even if it was just 10 breaths or even 1 breath. I, Tang Qingshan, am no longer the successor of the godly exterminator Forbidden Ground. I, Gong Yang, am no longer the successor of the godly exterminator Forbidden Ground. Damn it, I'm the future god of thieves, Sima Kong. At that instant, Tang Qingshan, Gong Yang, and Sima Kong, whose legs were trembling, stepped forward with determined looks. Even though the three of them, especially the latter two, were like ants before the martial monarchs, who could not even survive a single attack, they still stepped forward. Even if they were stupid, they knew that whenever they were in danger, Qin Nan would always lend a hand without hesitation. This time, if they did not step forward, they would regret it for the rest of their lives. The eyes of the crowd flickered with astonishment once again. Them. The Dragon Emperor, the nine-tailed monarch beast, and Ao Tsangtian were startled seeing this. It was as if there was a nameless place in their hearts that was deeply touched, causing waves to rise and fall. Well, well, well. Since you four are so stupid and want to die, I'll grant you your wish. Martial Monarch Huangwu, Martial Monarch Baisher, and the others collected their thoughts and unleashed their murderous intents, executing various monarch arts. Under the bombardment of the monarch arts, Princess Meow Meow and her crew were like a tiny boat in the middle of a surging ocean. A tiny wave would shatter them into pieces. No. Qin Nan's eyes instantly widened as his body began to tremble. Qin Nan, what are you waiting for? Defeat them at once and achieve the martial monarch realm. Tang Qingshan let out a roar as he merged with his sword and slashed forward like a moth darting into a flame. It was as if time had frozen at that instant. Princess, even if you've shattered the badge, you're still the princess of the Lost Herb Garden. Fine, fine, our Lost Herb Garden always pays our debts. Since Qin Nan has done you a great favor, it's reasonable for us to lend you a hand. However, this is the only time. At that instant, among the authorities of the Lost Herb Garden, one of the oldest existences shook his head helplessly, before his eyes flickered with an icy murderous intent. Listen to my command, use all you have to protect the Tribulation Dragon, and buy some time. The ancient existence uttered a shocking roar. Acknowledged. Chapter 1379. Lost Herb Garden, how dare you kill them all? The South Heaven Gate's furious and imperious voice exploded between the heavens and earth. It did not expect the people of the Lost Herb Garden would still dare to help Qin Nan when it was teaming up with the Monarch ranking and God ranking. Kill! Martial Monarch Huangwu, Martial Monarch Baisher, and the rest of the martial monarchs immediately activated their god weapons and executed a series of terrifying attacks. Bang! 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 The whole place shook vigorously once again. Chaotic storms swept in all directions, shattering the rules of the heavens and earth into pieces. Even though the formation brought by Princess Miao Miao and her crew was nowhere close to the strength of over 100 martial monarchs, the authorities of the Lost Herb Garden were able to absorb the force of the heavens and earth for their own use. They managed to stop the martial monarchs from advancing further, slowing down their speed of destroying the tribulation lightning dragons. Who would have thought? Princess Miao Miao and the others are willing to sacrifice so much for Qin Nan. It's all the will of the heavens, the will of the heavens. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and the rest of the terrifying existences across the Kanglan continent exclaimed in astonishment. Their gazes also landed on the Skyless Dojo. Although the current hope was still very slim, compared to before, it was already dozens of times greater. It all depended on Qin Nan whether he could achieve the legendary martial monarch realm or not. Princess, senior brother, brother Yang, Sima, you. Qin Nan stared at the four figures in the sky, who looked like they were going to be devoured at any second. He was supposed to be furious at them for doing such a stupid thing, but for some reason, his heart was deeply touched and filled with warmth. In this continent, regardless of whether he was in great trouble or making the world his enemy, there would always be a group of people who would stand by his side without hesitation, regardless of their lives. The divine battle spirit fights against the heavens and earth. There's nothing it doesn't fight against, nothing it doesn't win against. Qin Nan took a deep breath and uttered a shocking roar, as the battle intent in his body skyrocketed. This precious time was something that Princess Miao Miao and the others had risked their lives to fight for him. No matter what, he could not waste it. Bang bang bang! At that instant, Qin Nan's figure turned into a blinding light flickering on the Skyless Dojo. Terrifying saber intense, wisps of destruction will, and the will of the divine god of battle poured down on the weak spots of Su Qingning and the others. Annihilation battle prison, lock heaven and earth. A few hundred breaths later, Qin Nan immediately took hold of the opportunity and performed a hand seal, causing the pattern of destruction and battle to expand rapidly. Wisps of black qi and blue glow descended from the pattern, forming a terrifying cage that trapped Xing Tianjing and his crew. Qin Nan, don't even think about transcending the tribulation. Su Qingning's figure emitted a mystical glow as she glanced at Xing Tianjing and snapped, "How long are you going to keep quiet? Aren't you the strongest, Emperor Wu? Are you telling me that you can't even withstand such a small blow?" Xing Tianjing's mind buzzed as if he had just received a great blow. He was Xing Tianjing, the man who had altered his destiny and surpassed the rules of cultivation. He was known as the top genius with 3 martial spirit, and now, he was already on the verge of losing his mind just because his martial spirits were suppressed by his opponent? Qin Nan, even though you've suppressed my 3 martial spirits, granting you an unparalleled strength, you won't be able to break free from our seal and achieve the martial monarch realm today. Magnificent sky spear. Xing Tianjing collected his thoughts. His aura skyrocketed as a boundless glow accumulated in his hand, which eventually turned into a giant spear that penetrated the destruction battle cage and charged at Qin Nan. Their side had the greatest advantage. If they still allowed Qin Nan to achieve the martial monarch realm, it would be the greatest humiliation to him. Kill. Su Qingning, Zhuang Zidao, Wan Yonggu, and Heng Wuduan's auras skyrocketed as they merged their will with the monarch arts, turning them into their strongest attacks, as if they were going to destroy the space Qin Nan was in. Can't achieve the martial monarch realm? Along the way, countless seniors have given me their full support, and my friends are willing to sacrifice themselves to help me. Even the deities and Buddhas won't be able to stop me, let alone you. At that instant, it was as if Qin Nan had merged with the heaven-shattering saber into one. He slashed out terrifying saber intents, shattering the monarch arts into pieces. Even though his body was covered in cracks due to the impact, he did not frown in the slightest. Condense. Qin Nan performed another hand seal. The enormous destruction battle cage transformed once again, turning into ferocious dragons that circled the figures of Xing Tianjing and his crew, preventing them from moving. He had learned the move from a god art he had found in the Dragon God's chamber. Crap! Xing Tianjing and his crew were startled. They did not expect the cage to have such a trick up its sleeves. Boundless saber glow, shattering the heavens and earth. Qin Nan was covered in blood. His hair drifted wildly in the wind. It was as if he had turned into a beam of light that soared into the sky. He ignored the presence of the dragons and continued to slash at them with peerless saber intents. The geniuses are trapped. Qin Nan is going to overcome the tribulation. He's going to overcome it. There are still 30% of the tribulation left. Once he overcomes it, he will surely become a martial monarch. At that instant, the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, the authorities, and the ancient existences of the Kanglan continent were startled. Some of the ancient existences could not help but break out from the seal, shocking the surroundings. Kill them all. Martial Monarch Huangwu, Martial Monarch Baisher, and the rest of the martial monarchs were astounded seeing this. They let out a roar into the sky. Stop them! The eyes of the authorities of the Lost Herb Garden flickered with greed as they executed a series of terrifying forbidden arts. In that instant, everything in the world seemed to slow down. Countless gazes were gathered deep in the sky, watching the blood-red figure tearing the ferocious heads of the tribulation lightning dragons into pieces. 10 left. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, the authorities, and the terrifying existences felt their hearts pounding heavily for the first time. Qin Nan, don't even think about achieving the martial monarch realm. Tribulation of the heavens and earth, shatter. In the nick of time, over 100,000 li away, a monarch glow similar to a godly ocean surged forward at a terrifying pace. The Daos of the heavens and earth were shattered into pieces as they passed by. The monarch ranking's killing blow had finally arrived. Chapter 1380. The monarch ranking's killing blow is here? The terrifying existences across the Kanglan continent were startled. They were not surprised by the sight. When Qin Nan summoned the tribulation, the monarch ranking, the god ranking, and the South Heaven Gate had been preparing their attacks apart from the heavens and earth assassination orders. However, they were too far away from the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. It would take them a great effort and time to unleash their attacks. However, why did they have to do it at such an important time? Monarch ranking, you've been suppressing the cultivators of the Kanglan continent for over 10,000 years. Are you planning to keep suppressing us? Do you really think that we won't fight back? At that instant, a tremendous aura burst out of the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. He took a step forward and disappeared into the rift. He unleashed wisps of terrifying power to resist the attack with brute force. He had been waiting for a long time to defend himself against the attacks of the monarch ranking, the god ranking, and the South Heaven Gate. Tao Origin, you insist on siding with Qin Nan instead of hiding. If that's the case, I shall erase you from this world. The icy voice of the monarch ranking exploded between the heavens and earth. One after another, the attacks and the peerless swords came from the sky. Erase me? I would like to see how you're going to erase me. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain showed no sign of fear. He waved his hand, causing the skyless dojo to emit a tremendous blue glow, which transformed into blue lotuses from ancient times. Following his figure, the attacks were shattered into pieces. During the few thousand years that he had been missing, he had not been wasting his time. He had gone deep into the ancient demon abyss to cultivate the ultimate of cultivation. Even though it had yet to reach the greater success stage, it still possessed an extraordinary strength. Bang! 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 At that instant, a series of terrifying explosions took place. The spacious area outside the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain shook vigorously. The rules of cultivation, the rift, the ground, the mountains, the rivers, etc. collapsed and were crushed into pieces. It was like the end of the world, as if it was a natural disaster. Even though the people inside the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain could not witness it with their own eyes, the aura alone was enough to make them feel like they had fallen into an ice cellar. The level of the battle was simply too terrifying. It had completely surpassed their understanding. Tao Origin has made his move. The terrifying existences across the Kanglan continent were dumbfounded. Everyone knew that Tao Origin was basically going against the Monarch ranking, God ranking, and South Heaven Gate. He would not rest until one of them was dead. Besides, judging from Tao Origin's reaction, it was very likely that he had already prepared for it. He had placed all his bets on Qin Nan. There are only 3 tribulation lightning dragons left. A terrifying existence blurted out after realizing something. Fight! In the air, Qin Nan had suffered countless attacks. His body was dyed red with blood, as if he were made of blood. Despite that, Qin Nan's aura grew stronger instead of weakening. His battle intent surged wildly, dyeing the rift within a few dozen li blue. Bang! Following 2 loud explosions, Qin Nan used his flesh to resist the claws of 2 tribulation lightning dragons. He slashed forward with the heaven-shattering saber in his hand, severing the heads of the 2 tribulation lightning dragons with brute force. Blood splattered across the sky. Tribulation of the heavens and earth shatter. Qin Nan uttered a roar and swept across the 9 heavens. The destruction battle will and his will surged into the heaven-shattering saber in his hand like a storm. It turned into a blinding blood-colored saber glow slashing at the last tribulation lightning dragon. He's about to achieve the martial monarch realm. At that instant, the magical hair sword god, martial serendipity brother, the 9 words martial god, the terrifying existence across the Kanglan continent, the martial monarchs, the genius Emperor Wu, the martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators felt like their souls had frozen as they stared at the scene. Even the entire world had become completely silent. It was as if everyone was witnessing the birth of this peerless legend. Ha ha ha, monarch ranking, god ranking, South Heaven Gate, a new era is about to arrive. Your suppression, your conspiracy, from today onward. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain burst out laughing upon seeing this. This time, he had made the right bet. A new era is about to arrive? How ridiculous! However, before the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain could finish, a cold chuckle could be heard coming from the spacious space of sun and moon outside the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Forsake my will, forsake my body, the supreme heavens and earth, heed my command. Bang! The entire space of sun and moon began to tremble. The rules of cultivation above were shattered into pieces. Qin Nan die. Following a shocking roar, a destructive blue glow sprang out from the space of sun and moon and merged with the pieces of the rules. It turned into a terrifying spear over a few thousand zhang long within the blink of an eye, which penetrated the layers of space of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and the towering trees and ancient rare flowers that the authorities of the Lost Herb Garden had set up, before firing at Qin Nan like the judgment of the heavens and earth. In order to kill Qin Nan, it had sacrificed 2/10 of its sealed will. What just happened? The terrifying existences were startled. They did not expect such a shocking turn of events. It's a trap. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain immediately felt a chill running down his spine. The monarch ranking's killing intent was only a bait to lure him out of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Is it over? Princess Miao Miao, Tang Qingshan, Gong Yang, Sima Kong, and the others felt their hearts skip a beat. Under such circumstances, there was no way Qin Nan could resist the terrifying killing intent on his own. South Heaven Gate, even you won't be able to stop me from achieving the martial monarch realm. Qin Nan showed no sign of fear facing the terrifying spear. Instead, he unleashed a terrifying will that defied the heavens and earth. However, no matter how terrifying and astonishing his will was, his strength was ultimately insufficient. Before the great spear, he appeared insignificant. It could even be said that his fearless figure, bearing the brunt of his death, at this very moment, gave off an incomparably tragic and stirring feeling. Just a little bit more, and he could start a new era and become a supreme legend. But now, he was like a speck of dust. Roar. Suddenly, 2 terrifying beastly roars exploded between the heavens and earth like claps of thunder from the 9 heavens. A majestic battle dragon over a few thousand zhang long with a boundless purple glow and a snow-white 9-tailed fox with an agile appearance appeared between the heavens and earth. Their surroundings were filled with countless monarch glows, artifacts, talismans, etc. The 2 terrifying beasts were none other than the Dragon Emperor and the 9-tailed monarch beast. When they saw Princess Miao Miao and the others making their moves, their hearts skipped a beat. When Little Worm's voice echoed in their minds, they no longer had any hesitation, as they made up their minds. They had let Qin Nan down once. Either way, they would not let him down this time. If Qin Nan was in danger, they would surely lend him a hand. South Heaven Gate, listen up. No one is allowed to touch the people of the Dragon Emperor Court. Chapter 1381. Bang! Following a terrifying explosion, countless gusts of wind swept in all directions like peerless blade. Despite the extraordinary power of the spear, it was still knocked back by the impact. The glow on its body dimmed slightly. As for the Dragon Emperor and the 9-tailed monarch beast, they received a great blow from the impact. The talismans, artifacts, etc. circling them were shattered into pieces. Their enormous figures slammed into the ground like a meteor sweeping across the sky, splattering the blood of the dragon fox in all directions. Although their lives were saved, their hearts of the beast monarch, their bodies, and everything else were covered in cracks. Everyone at the scene was completely dumbfounded. No one had thought the 2 martial monarchs of the god-beast Forbidden Ground would risk their lives to help Qin Nan. How bold of you! The furious voices of the monarch ranking, god ranking, and the South Heaven Gate exploded. Dragon Emperor, 9-tailed monarch beast. You've all rebelled, risking your lives to help him. From today onward, you 2 will be expelled from the god-beast Forbidden Ground. All Yao clan members, kill these 2 bastards for me right now. The master of the god-beast Forbidden Ground sounded even angrier. He did not even finish his catchphrase. If his actual self was here, he would most likely tear the Dragon Emperor and the 9-tailed monarch beast into pieces with his own hands. Chief, Senior. Qin Nan floated in the air with a blank look. Cough cough, Qin Nan, I'm sorry for what we did in the past. Go and achieve the martial monarch realm, and become the brightest existence in this world. The Dragon Emperor and the 9-tailed monarch beast looked at Qin Nan. They ignored the furious voices and wore sincere smiles on their faces. Although they had suffered unprecedented injuries and felt heart-wrenching pain, there was an indescribable feeling of joy in their hearts. Chief, Senior, you. Qin Nan's body began to tremble uncontrollably. No one knew better than him what the collision between the Dragon Emperor and the nine-tailed Empress meant. Countless thoughts crossed Qin Nan's mind. In the end, he withheld his emotions and slashed at the tribulation lightning dragon with all his might. There were no words to describe his great kindness, and there was no way for him to repay it. Only by becoming a martial emperor now would he be able to repay all those who had helped him. Not good. The monarch ranking, the god ranking, the South Heaven Gate, the master of the god-beast Forbidden Ground, and the others were startled upon seeing this. Qin Nan, don't even think about it. The terrifying spear uttered a roar and immediately unleashed all its power, forming a peerless spear glow in an attempt to kill Qin Nan. However, no matter how fast it was, it could not catch up to Qin Nan. It could only watch as the heaven-shattering saber in Qin Nan's hand slashed the last tribulation lightning dragon into pieces. Buzz. At that instant, the rules of cultivation began to boil like boiling water. The sky, which had been dyed pitch black and suffocated, suddenly turned into an incomparably resplendent purple-gold light. Even the realm of sun and moon floating on the other side, the master of the Tao origin heavenly mountain, the terrifying spear, and the martial monarchs dimmed at that instant, as if they had lost all their brilliance. Bang bang bang! Following this, a series of rapid explosions took place on Qin Nan's body. His figure began to shatter into pieces as a tremendous force burst out from his body. Even the terrifying spear glow was shattered into pieces. I've overcome all the dangers of the heavens and earth, and even the tribulation of the martial monarch realm has been shattered into pieces. Now it's time for you to help me achieve the martial monarch realm, and let everyone know what I'm capable of. It was supposed to be a shocking statement at such an important moment, but Qin Nan only had one thought in his mind: what does it mean to be the top one martial monarch of all times? Whoosh! It was as if the entire Tao of the heavens and earth had heard Qin Nan's voice. Heavenly rivers were formed and merged into the brilliant glow, causing the brilliant purple glow to grow rapidly, before transforming into wisps of scarlet golden glow. The heavenly rivers were not made of water, but the rules of cultivation. After shattering the martial monarch tribulation, one would be acknowledged by the heavens and earth, granting them the power of the heavens and earth. Roar! At that instant, a series of terrifying roars exploded like godly thunder. Several enormous dragons with crimson golden bodies flew out from the scarlet golden glow deep in the sky and entered Qin Nan's body at a shocking pace. Qin Nan's body, which was on the verge of shattering into pieces, underwent a tremendous change. His flesh, bones, etc. were dyed crimson golden, granting him a terrifying strength. Even a seventh-layer martial monarch realm expert would have trouble damaging him with all their might. In addition to that, the monarch heart in his body had an additional stream of crimson golden glow, which began to merge with the destruction will and the will of the divine god of battle, resulting in a tremendous monarch force bursting out from Qin Nan's body. A tremendous aura soared into the sky and shook the surroundings. Seventh-layer martial monarch realm. Eighth-layer martial monarch realm. Ninth-layer martial monarch realm. The tremendous aura had reached the peak martial monarch realm in the blink of an eye. Qin Nan has achieved the martial monarch realm. Qin Nan has successfully achieved the martial monarch realm. The aura is too terrifying, it's comparable to the peak martial monarch realm. How is this possible? He has just overcome the tribulation. How could he possess such a terrifying aura? So this is achieving the martial monarch realm on his own? The difference between this and inheriting the monarch horoscopes is like the difference between the heavens and the earth. The master of the Tao origin heavenly mountain and the others, the terrifying existences, the martial monarchs, the genius Emperor Wu, the martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators were dumbfounded when they saw Qin Nan's current appearance. Was this a real martial monarch realm authority? Bang! However, to their surprise, at that instant, when the crimson-golden glow merged with the destruction will and the will of the divine god of battle in Qin Nan's body, the peak martial monarch realm aura continued to rise, surpassing all the other martial monarchs. He has surpassed the martial monarch realm? Chapter 1382. Bang! Following a shocking blast, 9 crimson rays were emitted from Qin Nan's back as an ancient, illusionary, magnificent figure floated in the air, unleashing a tremendous aura that swept the entire skyless dojo. Haha, 9th grade Tian ranked martial spirit? It's meaningless even if you have a 10th grade Tian ranked martial spirit. Xing Tianjing burst out laughing. His eyes flickered with disdain. It was not that he was looking down on Qin Nan's martial spirits, but every martial spirit in the world would be suppressed by his 3 martial spirits. Su Qingning, Zhuang Zidao, and the others shook their heads too. If Qin Nan's trump card was only his martial spirits, it would be meaningless. Is that so? Suppress. As Qin Nan uttered a roar, the divine battle spirit behind him seemed to have come alive, as its pair of illusionary eyes emitted 2 blinding green glows. Bang bang bang! At that instant, the 3 imperious martial spirits suffered a series of explosions as if they were struck by some invisible force. In addition to that, they began to tremble as if they had encountered some terrifying presence. What just happened? Xing Tianjing's face was filled with astonishment. His 3 martial spirits had surpassed the rules of cultivation of the heavens and earth, allowing him to suppress every martial spirit in the world. But now they were suppressed by a mere 9th grade Tian ranked martial spirit? This. Su Qingning, Zhuang Zidao, and the others were astounded too. This scene was simply too inconceivable. Xing Tianjing, you have 3 martial spirits, making you stronger than Su Qingning and Zhuang Zidao, but your strength is completely useless against me. Qin Nan stepped forward as if he had transformed into an emperor. The destruction and battle pattern on his back unleashed streams of murderous intent. Impossible, this is impossible, this is impossible. Xing Tianjing shook his head vigorously as if he was unaware of the situation. He continued to communicate with his 3 martial spirit. Even though he was ranked first on the Emperor Wu ranking, granting him an outstanding intelligence, the scene that had just taken place was still too shocking for him. It was as if the ability that he was most proud of was completely useless in the eyes of others. Qin Nan, even though your martial spirit has suppressed Xing Tianjing, you're still going to lose the battle. Su Qingning, Zhuang Zidao, and the others immediately reacted. They fired their outstanding monarch arts at Qin Nan like peerless swords. Still going to lose? Su Qingning, Zhuang Zidao, you might not know this, but the number of martial trees I refined wasn't 7, but 9. Qin Nan's thunderous voice caused the pattern of destruction and battle to emit a blinding glow. Boundless destruction will and the will of the divine god of battle surged forward like an ocean, shattering the monarch arts instantly. You had 9 martial trees. Su Qingning and Zhuang Zidao were astounded. If he really had 9 martial trees, didn't that mean Qin Nan's 2 monarch intents were stronger than what they had seen? Bang! 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 A terrifying battle took place once again. However, it was completely different this time. Be it his martial spirit, monarch intent, or his understanding of monarch arts, Qin Nan had completely suppressed Xing Tianjing and the others. Most importantly, even though Qin Nan's injuries continued to increase, his battle intent continued to grow stronger, as if a divine god of battle had returned to the mundane world. Qin Nan's martial spirit has suppressed Xing Tianjing's 3 martial spirits. Gasp! He didn't have 7 martial trees, but 9. Look, the 3 geniuses, Wan Yonggu, and the others are all being suppressed by Qin Nan. The eyes of the martial ancestor and rogue cultivators nearby flickered with great astonishment. They initially thought Qin Nan would surely lose the battle, but to their surprise, it turned out like this. Is this what it means to achieve the martial monarch realm on your own? The terrifying existences across the Kanglan continent took a deep breath too. Their hearts began to pound heavily, which was rare for them. Even with their cultivation of the 8th layer martial monarch realm, they would not stand a chance against Xing Tianjing and the others. However, Qin Nan had yet to overcome the tribulation of the martial monarch realm, thus he had yet to achieve the martial monarch realm, yet he was able to suppress Xing Tianjing and the others on his own? There's hope. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and the others were overjoyed. At this rate, Qin Nan would surely be able to suppress Xing Tianjing and the others and overcome the tribulation to achieve the martial monarch realm. South Heaven God-slaying sword. God-sealing pattern of 10,000 beasts. Underworld bell. At that instant, martial monarch Huangwu, martial monarch Baisher, martial monarch Haitao, and the rest of the peak authorities suddenly let out a roar. A giant sword that seemed capable of slaying deities, a drawing of countless beasts trying to achieve the martial god realm, etc., appeared and emitted a tremendous glow. These artifacts were all god weapons. Kill. Martial monarch Huangwu and the others performed a hand seal, causing the god weapons to unleash a terrifying aura and shatter the tribulation lightning dragons into pieces. Even though the tribulation lightning dragons were extremely powerful and extraordinary, their strength was no longer as strong as before after the previous battles. As such, they had no chance of resisting the attacks of the god weapons. Crap. Time is running out. At this rate, the tribulation lightning dragons will all fall within a few thousand breaths. The terrifying existence across the Kanglan continent was startled. Within a few thousand breaths, regardless of how outstanding Qin Nan's strength was, it was impossible for him to suppress Xing Tianjing and the others. In other words, Qin Nan was still going to fail in his attempt to achieve the martial monarch realm. What should we do? The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and the others were startled. If they were to interfere, the situation would only worsen. However, if they did not interfere, how was Qin Nan going to overcome the obstacle? Damn it, it's time to go all out. Seeing this, Little Worm clenched his teeth and executed an ancient technique. I'm the dragon god in the past. Listen to my command and help Qin Nan at all costs. Small Worm's voice turned imperious as it exploded in the Dragon Emperor's mind. It was a secret technique that only the ancient purple-golden battle dragon tribe was able to execute. That being said, it did not necessarily mean the ancient purple-golden battle dragon in the distance would listen to his orders when he executed the secret art. It might even inform the master of the god-beast Forbidden Ground about his existence. At that instant, an unexpected change took place. Bang! Chapter 1383. This is what it means to achieve the martial monarch realm. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain was astounded by the sight before him. He had mastered some of the secrets of cultivation, thus he clearly knew that achieving the martial monarch realm by oneself and inheriting the monarch horoscopes were two completely different levels. Even though Qin Nan's aura had yet to reach the level of the martial god realm, it was inevitable that his aura was stronger than all the martial monarchs. There was a fundamental difference between the two. Suddenly, the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain's eyes widened as his body trembled. How is this possible? The impact on the hearts of the other people present became even greater. Qin Nan's aura did not stop there. It continued to rise rapidly and reached a terrifying level within a few breaths' time. If the martial monarchs were described as ancient trees that stood tall, Qin Nan was currently a peerless immortal mountain that soared into the clouds with a magnificent aura. Qin Nan had not only achieved the martial monarch realm on his own. Before he achieved the martial monarch realm, He had merged the 9 martial trees that had surpassed the rules of cultivation with the pieces of the Kanglan tree. He had also refined 3 monarch horoscopes, allowing his foundation to reach an unbelievable level. Now that he was being baptized by the tribulation, everything that he had accumulated in the past was completely unleashed. Currently, even among those who had achieved the martial monarch realm on their own, no one could compare to him. Boundless Tao, monarch heart, return. Qin Nan's eyes suddenly emitted 2 shocking glows that landed on the invisible Tao as if they were able to see through the entire place. The monarch heart in his body that had been fully refined shuddered and unleashed a great force that spread in all directions around Qin Nan's body. In the end, it completely merged with Qin Nan's body. Bang! At that instant, a brilliant crimson-golden monarch glow burst out from Qin Nan's body, which lit up the entire space of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain like an ancient sundial. Everyone's eyes were filled with the glow. Voila! That wasn't all. At this instant, the grand Tao in the surroundings surged once more. Moreover, numerous enormous ancient beasts of various clans and extremely strange living beings of the heavens and the earth appeared. They converged over from all directions in a grandiose manner. They were like numerous ancient armies, and it was an extremely grand scene. 100,000 demonic beasts. Every single one of these demonic beasts is an ancient divine beast. Hiss, there's also the heavenly fiend, the earthly Een, and the 3 souls. These legendary creatures have all appeared. So this is self-achieving the martial monarch realm. The rare phenomenon of achieving the martial monarch realm is incomparable to this. The hearts of everyone present were like the sea. When they saw this enormous scene, they began to roll and churn, unable to stop. As everyone knew, when a martial monarch overcame the tribulation of the heavens and earth, rare phenomena would take place. Over the past tens of thousands of years, whether it was an ordinary great emperor or the genius Emperor Wu, they were all worshipped by thousands of beasts and roared in the heavens. There had never been a variable. However, the rare phenomenon that Qin Nan had triggered was even stronger than the combined efforts of a few dozen martial monarchs. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the nick of time, an unexpected change took place all of a sudden. Wisps of illusionary flames of the great Tao appeared out of nowhere and landed on the bodies of the beasts and living beings. They began to burn fiercely and even let out a loud sizzling sound. What's going on? The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and the others, including the magical hair sword god and the people of the martial Serendipity Pavilion, were startled. Qin Nan had already achieved the martial monarch realm. No matter how strong the force was, it would not be able to interfere with it. However, why would the rare phenomenon of the martial monarch realm suddenly shatter? This. In addition to them, even the monarch ranking, god ranking, South Heaven Gate, and a mysterious existence who were watching the scene from a great distance away were dumbfounded. Above the 9 heavens, or in other continents, worlds, or spaces, although the rare phenomena that were triggered after achieving the martial monarch realm were not as strong as Qin Nan's, they would not be burned by the flames of the great Tao. Could it be a sacrifice? The monarch ranking, god ranking, South Heaven Gate, and the mysterious existence suddenly recalled something. Bang, bang, bang. As if to prove their speculation, every beast was burned into ashes in the next instant. Following it, over 3,000 magnificent illusionary figures with blinding monarch glows rose from the ground and unleashed tremendous monarch auras. As each strange creature was burned into ashes, ancient musical instruments such as drums, shing, sun, qin, se, flute, chime bells, pipa, etc. appeared. Isn't that martial monarch Nank from 3,000 years ago? Isn't he already dead? That figure, could it be the famous martial monarch Sanjian from 5,000 years ago? That's the 32nd patriarch of our tribe. Wasn't his corpse and will sealed away? Why would they appear here? The martial monarchs, the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, and the rest of the terrifying existences were startled. They were extremely familiar with the illusionary figures of the 3,000 martial monarchs. Buzz. It was also at this moment that a buzzing sound suddenly resounded throughout the world. It was incomparably clear and crisp. Following it, an illusionary figure of a famous martial monarch from 8,000 years ago, like a giant mountain, suddenly raised the drumstick and slammed it heavily, producing a magnificent beat of the drum. The remaining illusionary figures of the martial monarchs played the sheng, sun, qin, se, flute, chime bells, pipa, and other ancient musical instruments. A nameless song was played between the heavens and earth. It was gentle, soothing, and pleasant to the ears. In less than 5 breaths, the buzz took place once again. It was incredibly loud, as the auras of the 3,000 illusionary figures of the martial monarchs skyrocketed. The sounds of the drums, qin, flute, etc. became extremely passionate. When they gathered together, it felt like the anger that had been accumulated for a long time was surging across the world. It felt like they were roaring, and interrogating again. Why was there no primary monarch force and primary god force between the heavens and earth? Why was there an additional martial spirit in the world when there should be no need for it? Why was everyone supposed to be able to ascend to the 9 heavens? Why was the entrance to the great Tao sealed? This music. The master of the Tao origin heavenly mountain and the others, as well as the terrifying existence and the martial monarchs, were startled for some reason. At their level, it went without saying that they were aware of these things. However, the 3 martial monarchs were simply too terrifying. They did not even dare to resist. As for those who resisted, it was unknown how many of them had died. The chime of the great Tao, the music played by the martial monarchs, could this be the primordial rules of the heavens and earth? The monarch ranking, god ranking, South Heaven Gate, and the mysterious existence were startled. Even though they had altered the rules to influence the Kanglan continent, they clearly knew that the primordial rules were still there. However, to their surprise, it had taken the initiative to appear when Qin Nan was achieving the martial monarch realm. Dong. All of a sudden, the tune of the song changed abruptly. The loud buzz and the auras of the martial monarchs became incredibly energetic. Each note, melody, and melody surged forward like a surging river with a strange power, causing everyone's emotions to rise and their blood to boil, giving them unprecedented courage. The rules of the primary monarch force, the rules of the martial spirit, the ability to ascend to the 9 heavens, everything was as difficult as the godly mountain. It was possible to surpass it. Today, tens of thousands of years after the great change in the rules, a young man had taken the most difficult step. Bang! At that instant, the sound of the drum, the guqin, the flute, etc. Each note, melody, and melody merged into one, as if they had become the only thing between the heavens and earth, or a godly flame that had suddenly exploded and penetrated the eternal darkness. At this moment, in everyone's mind, a silent voice rang out like divine thunder. Qin Nan had achieved the martial monarch realm. Chapter 1384. Meanwhile, the entire place fell into a dead silence. Everyone stared at Qin Nan, who was emitting a crimson-golden monarch glow in the air with a blank expression. The chime of Tao and the nameless song played by the martial monarchs had given them a great shock, as if they had just witnessed the change of an era. How ridiculous! He has only achieved the martial monarch realm. He has yet to achieve the martial god realm, yet he dares to claim that the new era has arrived? At that instant, the South Heaven Gate's icy voice exploded in the sky. Everyone, listen up. Qin Nan has just achieved the martial monarch realm, thus his martial monarch realm is still unstable. Make use of this opportunity and kill him at once. As soon as the words were spoken, 3 terrifying auras sprang into the sky from the southernmost area of the half-god region and another mysterious place, causing the surroundings to tremble. The 3 auras were the wills of the South Heaven Gate, monarch ranking and god ranking, which were equivalent to 3/10 of their actual wills. If it weren't for the fact that they could not move their actual wills, they would most likely send out their actual wills. Even though Qin Nan was unable to inflict any harm to them, the fact that he had achieved the martial monarch realm on his own was a great shock to them. They would not allow someone like him to live in this world. Bang! However, that was not the end of it. Godly glows were emitted from the southernmost place and another mysterious place. These godly glows were the martial god realm authorities under the monarch ranking, god ranking, and South Heaven Gate. In addition to that, at the Jade Lake Sacred Ground, martial principal sect, god beast forbidden ground, etc. Since the South Heaven Gate, monarch ranking, and god ranking have promised us such benefits, we should lend a hand too. Haha, third brother, once you're there, you don't have to do anything. Just let the South Heaven Gate and the others deal with the magical hair sword god and the others. Uncle, now that Qin Nan has achieved the martial monarch realm, the South Heaven Gate. Almost at the same time, the sacred leaders, patriarchs, masters of forbidden grounds, etc., transmitted their thoughts. Following it, a brilliant glow of the martial god realm soared into the sky from the various factions. The South Heaven Gate, monarch ranking, and god ranking clearly knew that the magical hair sword god and the others must have prepared a lot of countermeasures. Therefore, this time, in order to be absolutely safe, they did not hesitate to join forces with the other major forces and set up a monstrous killing trap. No matter what, Qin Nan must die. Meanwhile, on the 9 Words Ancient Sea in the Demigod region. Humph, Qin Nan has already become a martial emperor, and you still want to destroy him. The mysterious young man of the martial serendipity pavilion let out a hollow laugh and transmitted his voice. Dao Origin, follow the plan. Follow Tianji's instructions and set up a trap to stop the martial gods. I'll stop the wills of the monarch ranking and god ranking. After saying that, he took a big step forward and disappeared into the depths of the void. Magical hair, I'll ask you one last time, are you sure you want to do it? You should know the consequences of your actions. The voice of the 9 Words martial god echoed deep inside the ocean. If Qin Nan didn't let me down, he has successfully achieved the martial monarch realm. As the Alliance Master, I must give him a congratulatory gift for becoming a martial emperor. The magical hair sword god said calmly. His figure disappeared with a flicker without hesitation. The South Heaven Gate, the magical hair sword god, and the others are making their moves. Who would have thought the martial serendipity pavilion is involved too? It's most likely that it has long sided with Qin Nan. Apart from the war 8,000 years ago, I've never seen so many authorities showing themselves. The terrifying existences across the Kanglan continent were aware of the situation through various means. They could not help but exclaim. Qin Nan's achievement of achieving the martial monarch realm was like a trigger that had attracted the attention of the entire Kanglan continent. South Heaven Gate, don't you dare! Many terrifying existences quickly collected their thoughts and harumphed coldly. They emitted godly glows and reappeared. As they had thought, once Qin Nan achieved the martial monarch realm, they would surely lend him a hand to resolve the crisis. That being said, most of the terrifying existences chose not to interfere. As the South Heaven Gate had mentioned, Qin Nan had only achieved the martial monarch realm. He had yet to achieve the martial god realm. No one knew what the outcome would be. The master of the Dao Origin Heavenly Mountain has left? What about this? Suddenly, the terrifying existences glanced at the Dao Origin Heavenly Mountain as if they had sensed something. Apart from the traps set up by the South Heaven Gate, monarch ranking, god ranking, and the others, the biggest threat to Qin Nan was the martial monarchs from various factions. Now that the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had left, how was Qin Nan going to face the martial monarchs on his own? The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain has been lured away by the South Heaven Gate and the others. Qin Nan is alone now. Let's make our move and kill him at once. In the Tao Origin space, martial monarch Huangwu immediately reacted. He let out a roar and unleashed a tremendous monarch glow. Kill Qin Nan. The rest of the martial monarchs let out roars too. Their murderous auras surged into the heavens. Although Qin Nan's aura had surpassed all the martial monarchs when he achieved the martial monarch realm, it was only his aura. It was not the actual force of the martial monarch realm. Even if Qin Nan possessed the strength of the peak martial monarch realm, or even surpassed it, how could the few hundred martial monarchs not be able to kill him? Crap! Princess Meow Meow's expression changed instantly. She raised her hand and was about to execute a monarch art. Enough with the nonsense. Behind her, a furious roar exploded. We've protected him from the tribulation, thus we've repaid his kindness. No matter what happens next, we won't be a part of it. But Princess Meow Meow was about to say something. Princess, Senior is right. You've done me a great favor. There's no need for you to interfere. Qin Nan stepped forward in the air. It felt like a crimson-blue flame was flickering in his left eye. I'll handle the rest myself. Bang! At that instant, a tremendous battle intent burst out from Qin Nan's body. He turned into a blinding crimson-golden glow and charged at the martial monarchs like a peerless sword. Qin Nan is charging forward on his own? Chapter 1385. Qin Nan, how dare you come here alone, you're courting death. Among the martial monarchs, martial monarch Xuanxu, who had a conflict with Qin Nan and whose cultivation had reached the 7th layer martial monarch realm, smirked coldly. Whoosh! However, Qin Nan's figure suddenly moved at a shocking speed, dodging the monarch arts like a blinding ray. His icy eyes locked onto martial monarch Xuanxu's figure. How is this possible? Martial monarch Xuanxu was stunned. His face turned pale as he sensed a terrifying icy intent. Crap! He immediately executed an ancient forbidden technique to retreat rapidly. At the same time, he unleashed a series of monarch weapons and talismans to surround himself. Die! Following a cold roar, a brilliant crimson-golden monarch glow sprang forward like a ray of light. It penetrated the monarch weapons and talismans within the blink of an eye and left a giant hole on martial monarch Xuanxu's chest. A cry of agony could be heard as the life force of the cultivator was drained rapidly. Not long after, the cultivator was dead. Qin Nan, you won't be able to escape. At that instant, a loud roar exploded above Qin Nan. Martial Monarch Juku and Martial Monarch Xuanxu of the Dead Spirit Tribe both activated an ancient monarch weapon and executed a terrifying attack at Qin Nan. In addition to that, several monarch arts surged toward Qin Nan from all directions like surging tide. Even though a 7th-layer martial monarch had died, it was not enough to cause any ripples in the battle. They were planning to use the moment Qin Nan made his move to set up a trap for Qin Nan. Whoosh! Qin Nan's expression remained the same. His hair drifted in the wind as he disappeared into thin air with a flicker. He disappeared? Martial Monarch Ju Chu, Martial Monarch Xuanxu, and the others were startled. They immediately raised their monarch weapons without hesitation and yelled, "He's above us!" However, before he could say the word Fong, 2 ice-cold saber lights instantly blossomed between heaven and earth. 2 incomparably shrill cries of agony pierced through the air once again. The 2 9th-layer martial monarchs, who were considered to be one of the strongest existences in the Kanglan continent, could not even resist a single slash. They were slain in less than 2 breaths' time. And you guys? Qin Nan fixed his gaze on the martial monarch. He slashed forward with the heaven-shattering saber, firing a few dozen icy saber intents that poured down like the judgment of the heavens and earth. Spread out. The martial monarchs were startled. They immediately used various methods to escape from the place. Their cultivations were only between the 3rd layer and the 7th layer martial monarch realm. There was no way they could resist the saber glow that could destroy a 9th layer martial monarch instantly. Even though their reactions were extremely fast and their methods were extraordinary, in that instant, a total of 8 screams were heard. 8 martial monarchs from various factions were slain instantly. Their bodies were completely destroyed. Trying to run away? Not on my watch. Qin Nan's figure emitted wisps of destruction glow, which transformed into a pair of destruction wings. As they flapped, his speed skyrocketed. What terrifying speed and lethality! The ancient existences and the geniuses Emperor Wu were astounded. His speed and strength were equivalent to 3/10 of the strength of a 1st-layer martial god. Qin Nan, do you really think we can't do anything to you? At that instant, Martial Monarch Huangwu, Martial Monarch Baisher, Martial Monarch Wuheng, Martial Monarch Yunxing, and the rest of the peak martial monarchs from various factions flew toward Qin Nan from all directions. The god weapons in their hands emitted blinding glows, causing the rules of cultivation in the surroundings to tremble. The rest of the martial monarchs arrived too, unleashing all kinds of attacks. Even though Qin Nan's speed and strength were outstanding, each martial monarch was no ordinary person. As such, they had surrounded Qin Nan in just a few breaths' time. There was no escape for him. He was trapped in all directions like a turtle trapped in a jar. Crap! The ancient existences, Princess Miao Miao, and the others were startled. Under such circumstances, even a 1st-layer martial god would suffer serious injuries. Bang! At that instant, the power of the god weapons and the various deadly attacks were unleashed. From afar, it looked like dozens of ancient dragons with their mouths wide open, tearing at Qin Nan's figure. 3rd form of the divine god of battle, Skystride Blow. Qin Nan let out a roar as his figure merged with the heaven-shattering saber into one. He turned into a white ray of light and dashed forward, dodging the attacks of the god weapons. He arrived before Martial Monarch Wuheng, Martial Monarch Yunxing, and the others like a deity. The divine god of battle had 7 forms. He had mastered the 3rd form when he achieved the Martial Monarch realm. Once he executed the 3rd form, he would be able to bypass attacks that were on par with him or weaker than him and land in front of his enemies. How is this possible? Martial Monarch Wuheng, Martial Monarch Yunxing, and the others were astounded when they saw Qin Nan standing before them. This was the first time they had seen such a strange move. There's nothing you can do to me. What makes me the top 1 martial monarch of all times? Since the ancient times, no one above the martial monarch realm or below the martial god realm is comparable to me. Qin Nan's strong battle intent transformed into a murderous aura. I'll pay you back tenfold for what you've done. 2 terrifying forces burst out from Qin Nan's figure and whipped at Martial Monarch Wuheng and Martial Monarch Yunxing like the tails of a dragon god. God weapons! Martial Monarch Wuheng and Martial Monarch Yunxing were peak martial monarchs, thus they reacted swiftly and immediately activated their god weapons. Whoosh! Qin Nan seemed to be able to see through everything. The heaven-shattering saber in his hand flew forward and unleashed a tremendous saber glow, suppressing the 2 god weapons. The glow dimmed instantly. The stronger Qin Nan's cultivation was, the stronger the heaven-shattering saber would be. Ordinary god weapons had no chance against the heaven-shattering saber. You 2 tried to kill the princess? Die. Chapter 1386. Qin Nan, we are peak martial monarchs. Do you really think you can kill us so easily? Monarch intent unleashed. Martial monarch Wuheng and martial monarch Yunxing were startled. They immediately unleashed their monarch intent. Their monarch intents were different from the other martial monarchs. They had materialized, resulting in a mystical change to their original power, turning it into their strongest killing move. Materialized monarch intent? What's the point of that? Qin Nan remained still. But martial monarch Wuheng and martial monarch Yunxing were about to say something when they suddenly sensed something. Their eyes were filled with terror as they blurted out, "How is this possible?" Under the crimson flames, the two martial monarch intents were like dead trees. Not only did they not stand a chance against the flames, they even caused the flames to burn even more fiercely. Qin Nan's cultivation was currently the top one martial monarch of all times. Not only did he possess remarkable powers, his monarch intents were also deadly against false martial monarchs like them. "Qin Nan, you won't get away with it." Martial monarch Huangwu, martial monarch Baisher, and the rest of the peak martial monarchs swiftly reacted. They yelled and activated their god weapons to attack Qin Nan from all directions like ancient heavenly serpents. Even though Qin Nan had displayed his terrifying strength, they still believed what the South Heaven Gate had said. Qin Nan's martial monarch realm was still unstable. If they continued to fight, they would be able to find his weakness and kill him. Monarch intent unleashed, destruction battle saber. With a thought, Qin Nan unleashed the magnificent destruction monarch intent and the divine god of battle monarch intent from his body. They wrapped around the heaven-shattering saber, causing it to emit a terrifying aura like a dragon of destruction or a dragon of the divine god of battle. Such a terrifying monarch intent. At that instant, apart from the peak authorities, the rest of the martial monarchs were astounded. The heaven-shattering saber was causing the monarch intent in their bodies to tremble, as if they were suffocating. This was a kind of innate suppression, just like the great emperor and the martial ancestor. They were only separated by a barrier, but the power they controlled was like the gap between heaven and earth. "Hurry up and spread out, we can't fight him head-on." As expected of a martial monarch who had lived for thousands of years, martial monarch Huangwu quickly reacted and yelled, "You want to leave?" Qin Nan's aura rose rapidly as if he was about to achieve the martial monarch realm. In the blink of an eye, it had reached a magnificent level. "Martial monarch Huangwu, when I was achieving the martial monarch realm, you attacked my senior brother 5 times. I'll return the favor now." Boom! As the heaven-shattering saber slashed forward, a total of 50 streams of saber intents surged toward martial monarch Huangwu like ancient rivers. If he said he would return it tenfold, then he would return it tenfold. "You!" Martial monarch Huangwu's expression turned incredibly unpleasant, with a hint of paleness. "And you, martial monarch Luoyin, you attacked brother Yang 13 times. Martial monarch Baisher, even though you only attacked Sima Kong with a single attack, you're from the god-beast Forbidden Ground, and you even tried to kill the Dragon Emperor and Senior Nine-Tailed. Now you're paying it back 100-fold. Martial monarch Wooding, do you think you can escape?" Martial monarch Haitao. Qin Nan's roar exploded between the heavens and earth like a series of explosions. Following each roar, countless saber glows, crumbling mountains, fists of the divine god of battle, etc., descended like a torrential storm. The peak martial monarchs who were once imperious like the sun in the sky were currently dodging the attacks like stray dogs with their tails between their legs, leaving them in a miserable state. Bang! 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 At that instant, a series of deafening explosions took place. Throughout the battle, both Qin Nan's aura and the saber intents were like the judgment of a god descending upon the mundane world. Every time a famous martial monarch uttered a sentence, the punishment would be meted out. Every second, the cries of agony of a reputable martial monarch would shake the heavens as their blood splattered across the sky. Qin Nan had never been a magnanimous person, even after he had become the top one martial monarch of all times. As such, when he was slaying the tribulation lightning dragon, he firmly remembered the names of the martial monarchs who had tried to harm the princess and the others. Just like how they had sacrificed their lives to protect him, if anyone dared to harm the people close to him, he would slash them without mercy. Now I'll settle the final debt with you. When I achieved the martial monarch realm, you all teamed up to attack me. Do you really think I'm that easy to bully? 10,000 ancient monarch heart unleash! A boundless crimson golden monarch glow burst out from Qin Nan's figure, which transformed into an illusionary, enormous, and magnificent armor encapsulating Qin Nan's figure. His long robe flapped wildly in the wind. This was his full strength, his true appearance as the top one martial monarch of all times. His cultivation and aura are still improving? Martial monarch Huangwu, martial monarch Baisher, and the rest of the peak authorities were astounded. How was he the top one martial monarch of all times? He was clearly a first-layer martial god. Besides, he was even stronger than a first-layer martial god in other aspects. Sky-desolating saber art. His long hair drifted to the wind. Qin Nan's eyes were cold and emotionless. His figure was like a flicker between the heavens and earth, disappearing and reappearing instantly. Each time he reappeared, a terrifying saber glow would burst out between the heavens and earth. Bang bang bang! As soon as the martial monarchs dodged the saber glows, they clearly saw the saber glows shatter into pieces all of a sudden, which transformed into a huge sky-desolating will and rammed into them like ferocious ancient beasts. A series of cries of agony echoed between the heavens and earth like bamboo shoots after a rain. Countless monarch corpses and monarch blood splattered across the place, dyeing the entire rift crimson. Chapter 1387. Over 100 martial monarchs were being suppressed? How could his aura continue to rise? How was that the monarch intent? It was on par with the god intent of a first-layer martial god. The terrifying existences across the Kanglan continent, the genius Emperor Wu, the martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators were astounded by the battle. They initially thought no matter how strong Qin Nan was, he would not stand a chance against so many martial monarchs. However, to their surprise, the cultivation of the top one martial monarch of all times was so terrifying. People of the God-Beast Forbidden Ground, listen up, martial god realm experts will be here to kill Qin Nan. Withdraw from the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain at once, that's all. People of the Dead Spirit Tribe, listen up. People of the Ocean Tribe. Thunderous, imperious, and furious voices exploded in the sky. The voices belonged to the patriarchs, and the others of various factions. This time, they had never thought that the final result would be like this. This caused them to be unable to sit still any longer, and they sent out orders. Each martial monarch was extremely precious to their factions. If Qin Nan killed them all, it would be a great loss to them. Let's go. Martial monarch Huangwu, martial monarch Baisher, and the rest of the authorities completely lost the murderous intent in their hearts when they saw Qin Nan's terrifying appearance. They even felt a hint of fear. As such, when they heard the words, they immediately executed their forbidden arts as if they had just been pardoned. They fired their monarch rays into the surroundings. Skystride blow. Qin Nan took a step forward and arrived before martial monarch Huangwu. Wisps of formidable force struck martial monarch Huangwu's chest like the tail of a godly dragon from the 9 heavens. Martial monarch Huangwu, who was already severely injured, immediately let out a cry of agony. The monarch glow encapsulating his figure was shattered as he fell from the sky, smashing a huge pit into the ground. The destruction battle spear penetrated his body. The 2 monarch intents on Qin Nan's body surged once again. They turned into terrifying spears within the blink of an eye, firing at martial monarch Baisher and the rest of the peak martial monarchs. Cries of agony were heard once again. Trying to run away? Sure. Even though his cultivation was peerless, there was no way he could stop a bunch of martial monarchs who were trying to run away. However, before they could escape, the peak leaders of the various factions would all die. Targeting peak martial monarchs? The geniuses, Emperor Wu, martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators took a deep breath. Qin Nan. Qin Nan was martial monarch Baishur, the martial principal sect's patriarch, and the god-beast Forbidden Ground, and the others were watching the monarch trembled in Qin Nan. That was a peak great emperor. No matter which faction they were in, they would be the pillars of support. However, despite their anger, there was nothing they could do. The martial god realm authorities they had sent out were stopped by the master of the Tao origin Heavenly Mountain. The will of the monarch ranking and god ranking was stopped by the martial serendipity pavilion too. For a while, they could only watch Qin Nan massacring the martial monarchs. I'm almost done with the hundreds of martial monarchs. Now, it's time to settle the score with your factions. Qin Nan turned around and glanced downward. His voice was extremely cold. You trying to leave too? Qin Nan you. Xiao Yunjue, Meng Longxie, Wan Fenghun, Jiang Kongzhou, Li Qima, Zhang Xianyun, and the rest of the geniuses and Emperor Wu, who were preparing to leave the place, felt their scalps turning numb. They did not expect Qin Nan to look at them all of a sudden. Qin Nan, what do you mean by this? The sacred leader of the Jade Lake Sacred Ground, the martial principal sect's patriarch, the god-beast Forbidden Ground, and the others blurted out in shock and anger. What do I mean? You've teamed up to deal with me, yet I'm not allowed to fight back? I might have killed a lot of your martial monarchs, but it's still not enough to appease my anger. Meng Longxie, Ling Soling, Wu Hong, Si Zhaoxue, even if I don't kill you today, someone else will. As for Xiao Yunjue and the others, you will all die. Qin Nan felt like he had turned into a peerless demon. The destruction battle saber in his hand was emitting an icy aura. The sky within a few hundred li began to tremble. During the battle, his divine sense had been keeping an eye on the geniuses and Emperor Wu. He was planning to kill them all. This was the great gift he had prepared for the various major powers. Qin Nan, don't you dare! The furious voices of the sacred leader of the Jade Lake Sacred Ground, the patriarch of the martial principal sect, the god-beast Forbidden Ground, and the others echoed in the sky. They never thought Qin Nan would have such a crazy idea. I don't dare? What a joke! Even if I was only a martial ancestor, I wouldn't hesitate to kill the successors of your factions, let alone the current me. Die. Qin Nan's aura soared into the sky. The heaven-shattering saber in his hand emitted a blinding saber glow as it locked onto Xiao Yunjue and the others and slashed at them mercilessly. Did he really dare to kill them? The terrifying existence across the Kanglan continent, Princess Miao Miao and the others, and the genius Emperor Wu could feel their hair standing on its end. If he had only killed the martial monarchs of the various factions, the factions might not have bothered to fight Qin Nan. However, if their young masters or young masters were killed, they would surely go crazy. Besides, Qin Nan was already on the list of the 3 authorities on the monarch ranking, god ranking, and South Heaven Gate, yet he still dared to offend so many factions. Just how lawless was this guy? Crap. The sacred leader of the Jade Lake Sacred Ground, the patriarch of the martial principal sect, the master of the god-beast Forbidden Ground, and the others felt their hearts turning cold. Under the circumstances, none of them could stop Qin Nan. However, in the nick of time, an unexpected change took place. Dong. A faint chime of a bell that seemed to come from a great distance echoed between the heavens and earth. Was that the terrifying existence across the Kanglan continent, and the authorities of various factions were startled. Even the saber in Qin Nan's hand shuddered slightly. Dong. The chime of the bell took place once again. Not only did it echo in the Tao origin Heavenly Mountain, It also echoed in various places in the half-god region, causing the cultivators to be startled, as if they were wondering if they had heard it wrong. Dong, dong, dong. A series of chimes took place, each louder and more passionate than the previous one. Everyone on the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and the cultivators in the half-god region were astounded when they heard the chime. Where did the chime come from? Could it be? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.